Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Welcome to all the participants who are joining us for this online FTP. Let's give a couple of minutes so that everyone can join in.
Sure.
Good evening, Vijay Lakshmi ji. Good evening, Dr. Vamsi. Good evening, Kalya Sethi ji. Good evening, Dr. Shashwati Mukherjee. We are just getting a lot of messages. Just one second, sir. I'll just take this. Let's just give one more minute, sir. People are just joining in. Just one more minute. Welcome to all the faculty members who have joined, and a very, very warm welcome to Dr. Aruna Mukhopadhyay, who's joining us from IIM Lucknow. Sir, we will be very happy to hear your keynote. Before that, I'll just share with the participants and the faculty members a few details about the online FTP. Welcome everyone. My name is Kamna Jain. I am with NASCOM and I will be your coordinator for the 6-day online FTP program organized by SSC NASCOM and sponsored by AICT Atal Academy. The dates are from this Monday, from today till Saturday, we will be having sessions. And it's a privilege for me to be coordinator for this program and an honor to initiate this orientation session. Before we get on with the session, I would like to thank AICTE for taking up this important initiative and entrusting us at NASCOM to host this program. A few details for you. The email ID with which you have registered on AICT Atal portal, all the information, all the updates, the assessment, the course, everything will be basis of that email ID which you have registered on AICT Atal portal. Your attendance will be taken on Zoom with the email ID with which you have registered on Atal portal. So what we do is we track the Atal portal for your email IDs, and the same thing we map with the Zoom attendee list to update your attendance. So please use the same ID for attending the lectures on Zoom, and please update your accurate email ID designation and institute name on the AICT portal to ensure that your certificates reflect the correct information. One more thing I would like to highlight to all the faculty members is that your assessment will be taken on the Future Skills Prime portal. So I will request you all to register on that. In the chat, I'll share the link for the Future Skills Prime portal also. Uh, it is the on that also, please register with your registered email ID. That is the one that we will recognize. Finish the course of Generative AI Fluency and then take the assessment on Future Skills Prime. Having said that, let me now tell you a little bit about SSC NASCOM. We are in existence since 1988, and we have about 3,800 IT companies as our members, and we work with Ministry of Information Technology to offer uh, courses in emerging technologies on Future Skills Prime, where we will be hosting your course also, which is Generative AI Fluency. We have a series of good, in fact, excellent resource people who will come to take your sessions on the topics which are listed in the curriculum. And now let me invite Dr. Aruna to deliver his keynote address. Sir, we are very, very privileged to have you with us here today. And a brief introduction of Sir is that Sir is with IIM Lucknow. He's a professor. Uh, He is the former dean of IIM Lucknow from 2020 to 2022. He obtained his PhD and postgraduate diploma in business management from IIM Calcutta in management information systems. He even won the Infosys scholarship during his PhD. He has published in various journals, including Information and Management Journal, Decision Support Systems Journal, the Journal of Organizational Computing and Electronic Commerce, and many others. He is the recipient of the Best Teacher in Information Technology Management in 2013 and 2011 by Star DNA Group. He is also recipient of the 19th Devang Mehta Business School Award. He's also the recipient. He has won numerous awards. He's a member of all major technical societies, and he's currently the president of the Computer Society of India of the Lucknow chapter. Welcome, sir. I now hand it over to you for your address to inspire the faculty and take this day forward.
Thank you so much, Kamraji. It's indeed a pleasure to be associated with NASSCOM and to be able to participate in such an interesting and an important event like the Atal mission that's being carried out to create some sort of a fluency, as you're calling it, in the context of GenAI. So now it's a very interesting and a very important issue that we need to delve into. So I'm going to talk it in terms of the various reasons that why organizations are today thinking about GenAI as one of the key tools for their business productivity on one side and also for their strategic growth in terms of trying to get into newer markets, newer products, product mix reorganization and things like that. So that in that context, GenAI becomes very important. So let me briefly define GenAI. As you all understand, there are two terms here, generative and AI. So when you talk about AI, we all know that we're talking about a past data set which we are trying to use to train some model such that the model is able to either describe, predict, diagnose, or is able to come up with some sort of a cognitive understanding of the phenomena and is able to respond or react hereafter given the similar scenario or something similar to that. So that's how AI we can talk about. So AI can be descriptive AI, it could be predictive AI, it could be prescriptive AI, it could be cognitive AI. So that's the landscape of AI. Now, when you're talking about generative AI, the interesting part is that we are now focusing on the generative part of the or the capabilities of artificial intelligence to be able to generate or create more content, so which could be in the form of text, it could be in the form of images, it could be in the form of videos, so or multimedia. So that's where the interesting part of generative AI comes in. That is, it's able to generate or create content on its own. Now, once we do that effectively, then the interesting thing which happens is that we are now in a state or we are now in a scenario where we can actually we are able to get the tool or the AI tool to help us create new content for us. Now, if new content gets created, how does that help us as a business entity or as a business manager in any organization? So now let's look at it from this way. Suppose we had a very intense meeting over the day or a couple of days, and we had taken some notes around the meeting or the actionable points, etc. But somehow we were not able to, and it was a very long deliberation. So can we have some sort of a tool which could enable us to summarize that, make it in bullet form, and give us the main key takeaways from that, so that we could take actionable we should take actionable or we should perform actionable activities on those data points that we have arrived at. So that could be one way of looking at the use of AI. So ideally, what we're doing here is that we are trying to use AI as a co-pilot, and we're trying to take the advantage of a tool, which is the artificial intelligence tool, which is able to understand and is able to comprehend and come up with some sort of an actionable point. So that is the basic part of using generative AI, where we're using it as a co-pilot. That means it's trying to help us in doing mundane activities, regular jobs, in such a way that we can now focus on other important activities as a manager or as a person in an organization. Now, the interesting thing comes up here is that how do we then use that capabilities of AI for more productive purposes? So I could use generative AI now as a co-thinker, as been defined in one of the literature which has been which is available in Harvard Business publication, where they have actually done a study and they've been come up with a very interesting thought process that can we think about generative AI to be a co-thinker? So that becomes a very interesting thing. So just like we as human beings tend to collaborate, tend to discuss, tend to have thrash out interesting inputs in terms of trying to figure out whether we are on the right track when we are trying to make some decisions. So in the same way, can I use the generative AI tool to help me in the thinking process? So what do I mean by that? So say, for example, I'm trying to make a pitch to one of my clients, and if I'm a business manager or a or a delivery manager or a product manager. I want to ensure that I could enhance the sale of my particular product to my customer. Then I'm trying to create a pitch for that instance. So one way I could do is that I could ask the generative AI to create a pitch for a particular product. It could be a software, it could be a hardware, any of those products that I'm trying to sell, or it could be even for a car. So it could ideally go ahead and create that pitch for me. It could even create a slide deck for me and things like that. But that would be again relegating generative AI to the role of a co-pilot. But can we use this as a instrument where it could actually think and help and guide me to be a co-thinker or a co-creator with me, right? So what I do is that I start questioning the output that generative AI throws back at me, right? So the moment I do that, what happens is that generative AI now starts coming up with outputs which are more focused in nature and even could give me all the dimensions of looking at that business problem that I'm trying to address. In this case, the business problem is that how do I cross sell or upsell, or how do I get a new client added or onboarded to my organization? So that is how it would be effective enough or effective indeed for me to use the generative AI as a co-thinker. So I now get a lot of inputs from this generative AI tool, and now I'm able to thrash out, or I'm able to frame in a more intelligent way that what could be the potential questions that my client could ask me when I'm making a pitch for them. Or say, for example, I'm trying to make a pitch for the board of governors in my organization, and I'm trying to ask for more resources so that I could use that for an effective way of growing my IT initiatives in my organization. So, how do I make a pitch to the board of governors so that all my scenarios are covered and all the various aspects that I could be questioned on, I could get some sort of an understanding even before I walk into the board of directors office or into the chamber or the hall where the meeting is happening. So, generative AI can be really, really powerful in that context, and it can throw out various scenarios that could be questioned by the board members, and that could be a very effective way of using generative AI as a co-thinker. So that is where the interesting part comes in, is that how effectively can I use the power of generative AI to be a co-thinker and a co-creator of value simultaneously. So that's where it becomes really, really legitimate and very useful tool, rather than just using it as a co-pilot. Now, if I wanted to make it a co-thinker, what do I need to do? As a business manager, I would need to provide it with context, because every business would have a different context. Every decision would have a different scenario in which I'm trying to come up with. So the context becomes very important, right? So say, for example, I'm trying to sell Coke in a region where it's winter, right? So how do I sell Coke in a region where it's cold, where it's winter already? So what type of what are the various scenarios that could come up which I might require to answer, such that when I actually put the product on the shelf in those regions which is cold, I'm able to get substantial amount of revenue still coming into me, right? So how do I pitch it? What could be the probable scenarios that I might be able to address in that case, right? So that is how we can look at the effective use of Gen AI with the context associated with it. Now, the conversation that we have as individuals can also be done by a generative AI tool. So that's again a very interesting thing to think about, and that's where the power of generative AI comes in. Because if I'm able to make it converse with me and using the prompts that I am writing, through that conversation, it would the outcome of the generative AI is going to improve, and that's going to be very helpful and very pertinent in helping me to arrive at the final conclusion in terms of what I'm trying to solve. That's again a very important thing. Now, the next important thing is that if I want this generative AI to be really, really successful and help me to arrive at my outcome, I should be also able to add some sort of a judgment into it, right? I should not only listen to what is being thrown back to me by generative AI, but I should also provide some amount of judgment to it, right? So when I'm conversing back to generative AI, just like a human being we do when we talk about any particular issue that we are trying to address, we have our own viewpoints, we have our own judgments, we have our own perspectives. So can we also provide that to generative AI through the prompts and through the conversation that we have, that's going to make it much useful and very helpful in the terms that we will able to find out the scope in which we are trying to get that answer from. So that is again a very important thing that generative AI can do. If this conversation can be had with the generative AI in a way that the context, the perspective, and the judgment also gets associated with it. So as we all know, from country to country, the perspective or the judgment or human judgment might differ in various scenarios, right? So in the same way, what I would urge that when we are trying to use generative AI, we should be also able to pull that or bring that judgment into action so that the learning happens properly and the outcome is can be used very proficiently. Now, in the same context, as we all know, that if there are a couple of traps that we can end up when we are using generative AI. I'm sure most of you have heard about it, and one is that of hallucination, right? So at times, as we all know, generative AIs can tend to hallucinate. So if when it's hallucinating, what is happening is that the outcome that the generative AI is providing is theoretically correct, but contextually it might be wrong. So what do I mean by that? So what I'm saying is that a generative AI, it's an LLM model. It could be a chat GPT 4 or a chat GPT 5 or a 4.5, or it could be a Llama, it could be DALI 2, etc. So it could be any of these generative AIs that we are talking about, but these generative AIs have this inherent problem of hallucination. So what's happening here is that it's a large language model which is being trained on data, and based on the training, it's actually throwing out responses, which is quote unquote talked about as the generative part of that activity of the LLM. But it might so happen that the outcome that it is throwing out, or the output that it is throwing out, is statistically correct, but contextually it might be wrong. So that is again a very serious issue that we might all have to take care of when we are communicating or using a LLM or a generative AI tool to answer some sort of a business problem that we are trying to address. So I think it's a common knowledge that there are examples where LLMs have faltered, LLMs have not been able to come up with the right outcomes contextually, even though they were theoretically correct or statistically correct. So one case in point I think most of you are aware of is where one lawyer had created a case file for taking up for his client at the court. And when he goes to the court, he presents it in front of the judge, and the judge figures out that after scrutiny that some of these cases that he was referring to never ever had happened, and they were all showing up in that case file because the lawyer who had prepared the case file had made extensive use of LLMs or generative AI, and some of this were pure hallucination and far away from reality. So that's again a very big issue that we should keep in mind or take into account. So this is known as a solo trap. That is, if I am only relying on what is being thrown back by me, by the generative AI to me, then I might end up in a scenario where I might be very far away from the context or the reality, and I have to take cognizance of that. So the solo trap is one very important thing. Next is that if I'm agreeing to, in continuation with the solo trap, if I'm agreeing to all the responses that are being provided by the generative AI, then what is happening is that it's also known as a speed trap. That means whatever responses come in, I don't verify it. I just go ahead and use that outcome in my decision-making process. So that's also not a very right thing to do. So these are a couple of the issues or challenges, as we know, what could be there with the generative AI. Now, when you're talking about generative AI, again, another important issue which comes up is that do we have proper guardrails associated with generative AI? Because if we don't have proper guardrails associated with generative AI, there could be scenarios which could lead to harm to human beings and their properties or their life as well. So that is one which important thing which should be avoided, because a generative AI is a tool for enhancing productivity, enhancing strategic decision making for human beings and organization, and should not anyway try to create harm to a human being or society or to organization. So that has to be kept in mind. So the guardrails should be very strong, and the guardrails should be such that any of these malicious intended queries or prompts should not result in outcomes or outputs coming up from the LLMs, right? So, say for example, asking to how to create a virus or how to create a malware, etc. Those responses should never ever be provided or allowed to be thrown back by an LLM. In the first case, there can be two ways in which this guardrails can happen. Is that first is that these sort of questions don't get answered at all, or even if and it does not get processed by the LLM in the first place, or alternatively, even if it gets processed, the final output is not shown to the end user, and there are serious restrictions around it. So guardrails again become a very important uh, case that we have to consider, because unless and until those guardrails are in place, these LLMs could actually be become rogue, and it could actually create problems for humanity, society, and organizations at large. Now, it becomes very important as faculty members here for all of us to explore, understand, and learn about generative AI, because that is one of the most useful tools which are available in today's context. And once we are able to appreciate and understand that tool, we could then pass that knowledge or information to our students, and they in turn could use it in their organizations when they get to do either some sort of a operational activity, or for some strategic purposes they could deploy it. So that's where it becomes very important and urgent and pretty apparent that we should be having some sort of an understanding in terms of the GenAI fluency. So more we start using generative AI, more we start interacting with generative AI, and there are n number of tools that we are all aware of, more is the fluency that's going to arise amongst ourselves. And once we have those tools learned by us, we can then pass it on to the students who could also learn them going forward. Now, this is a very interesting platform where we have got industry, academia, all coming together. And through this platform, we are trying to disseminate the concept of generative AI and trying to create a workforce which is going to be very knowledgeable about generative AI. So one very important thing is that generative AI has a lot of pluses. There are a lot of worries about the negatives of generative AI, whether it's going to lead to job loss, etc. But I don't think so any of that is going to happen. Rather, it's going to create some sort of a scenario where people who have competency in generative AI, they are going to be front runners compared to people who are yet to pick up on the knowledge about generative AI. So in that context, it becomes very important that this 6-day program that has been planned by NASSCOM in association with the AICT is planning to provide that fluency in AI. And all of that, once done, should be really a wonder for us as citizens, as teachers, and going to be useful. So in that context, I wish you all the best for this 6 days. And I'm sure you're going to have a very fantastic learning out of it. And then you're able to pass it on to the students who could also be able to use it to the fullest. Thank you very much for this opportunity and wish you all the good luck for the learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arunab. Thank you so much for that address, for highlighting the critical nature of AI and how what are the guardrails that need to be kept in mind. So to be cognizant of the tool while using the tool, but the tool that has to be used if the students and faculty need to move ahead in this new world which is being run by AI. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a very inspiring session.
Thank you.
I'll now move on to welcome Mr. Paramdeep Singh. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the online FDP program. Paramdeep sir has agreed to join us. He is the co-founder of Short Hills AI. And we are privileged to learn from him and get his insights on how to use on GenAI and how to use it. He is an MBA from IIM in Indore and a BTech from IIT Delhi. He's a serial entrepreneur, having built and scaled an edtech startup earlier called EduPristine. He has 30 years of experience across software engineering, strategy, consulting, and investment banking. Ex-IBM and Accenture, a senior consultant with them. And his core expertise is GenAI, machine learning, and strategy consultancy. He's trained almost 10,000 plus people on GenAI, Agentic AI, and financial modeling. So, thank you so much for joining us for this session. We have about 83 participants who are already part of this session. About 114 faculty members have registered. I'm hoping that few more will join in as the session goes. So, over to you, Paramdeep, to take this session forward.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kamna. Thank you so much. So, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, yes, you
Oh,
can type a yes, faculty members. You can
sure.
type a yes, and before handing it over completely, let me just urge you to interact, to engage. You can put your questions in the chat box, or questions can be in the question answer box also, and you can reply with a yes or no in the chat box, and questions can come in the question box. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. So I would love this session to be as interactive as possible. So I know sort of online sessions is difficult to relate a little bit, but still I would encourage everyone to ask questions whenever you can, and would be happy to take up questions as we move forward, maybe every 5 or 10 minutes, so that sort of we don't break the flow. At the same point of time, we keep this as interactive as possible. So I'll just share my screen. Just let me know if you can see the screen. How do I get rid of this? Yeah. So is my screen visible to everyone? Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So, so thank you so much for inviting me to take this session. So, as Ms. Kamna said, I am a serial entrepreneur. I've run a business called EduPristine for 10 years from 2008 till 18, where my primary job was training people around financial modeling, CFA, FRM, and a lot of maths-oriented courses. I ran that company from 2008 till 18, and then I started this company called Shorters AI with my partners. And out here, sort of our core focus is machine learning, AI, generative AI, and we work with multiple clients to solve their problems related to generative AI. I have experience speaking at multiple conferences, etc., on AI, and would be happy to sort of interact with you, help you understand um, from my perspective what generative AI is. As I said, I would love if you have a question, just post that on the chat box. I would take that question up from time to time and then see if I can help you with more clarity on the same. So, so that's the primary agenda that I have in mind. I would start from a very practical understanding of what generative AI can do for you, and then I'll try to explain how that magic works. So, in a nutshell, obviously there are sessions planned over the next few days where you would get to understand each of these aspects in detail. But I will try to touch upon each of these aspects a little bit, as in how the generative AI works intuitively, as in to understand how it works. Then we'll see as in how you can control the AI aspects, what kind of prompts you can put in, what are the other parameters that you can use to make sure that you get the right outcome from AI. We'll also see what kind of impacts it can have on businesses. Again, I know there is a session planned in detail across multiple industries that can that where Gen AI can play a role. Then we'll also touch upon some challenges, as Sir also pointed out. There are challenges. Obviously, it's a new technology. There are some challenges that Gen AI has, and then I'll try to touch a little bit on the latest aspect, that's agentic AI, and that's the real buzzword these days. What agents can do for us. So that's the broad agenda I have in mind. Um, my session is about 90 minutes. I'll try to spend about 10 to 12 minutes on each of these sections. And then if we sort of lag a little bit, I'll try to pace up the next session so that we get sense of the material. Again, as I said, this is in a nutshell what you would see over the next few days. So I'll straight away jump into what AI can do for you, and I'll straight away start from some magic that AI has. So let me just uh, pick this up. So out here, I show to you a tool called Notebook LM, and this is a generative AI tool by Google. It's called Notebook LM. So what this can do for you is pure magic. So if you were to ask me, can somebody do this a few years ago, I would have said it's completely not possible. And let's see what it does. So what I've done is that I picked up Omron spec sheets, and I can show you how complicated these spec sheets are. So if you just look at the specs, so this is the PDF that has the specs. It has switches and all the details related to switches. So this is the table that it has. So, for example, a switch is a fixed rod actuator, and I don't even know what that means. Uh, it is general purpose switch. It has an operating temperature between -10 and 80, and so on. So multiple specifications. So very complicated specification sheet to look at. And as a human being, when we try to understand this, we obviously assume that it's only the experts that are working in this industry can understand this now. But now generative AI gives us the power to understand this in detail. So for example, there's this tool and it's a free to use tool. I encourage you all to go to this tool called Notebook LM. Just search for Notebook LM Google, and you can just literally log in with your Google account. It's free to use. Just upload a document, a video, or an audio, anything you can upload. So you can even upload an audio, and that's it. So it gets the magic done. So what it can do for you is that it can help you understand everything in detail. You can ask whatever you want to ask. So for example, I want to ask, so give me the key features of the indicator, and it will automatically answer this question for me. So it will look at the document that I've uploaded. So that's the context I provided. So for example, I provided the Omron specifications that I have, and then I ask a question. What AI is doing for me is that it goes into the document. Is that okay? It goes into the document, understands this document for me. Is that okay? And then generates an answer for me. And it's a very pinpointed answer. So, for example, I ask about the indicators. So the indicators is an essential feature. Then it says about the primary function and the physical design. It shows me from where did it pick this up. So the exact reference to the document. Is that okay? So what are the LED specifics and so on. So that means even as a person who does not understand these detailed technical specifications, AI has made it very easy for us to understand this. And literally, for example, if I were to ask what is the voltage range for this, so what is the voltage range for the switch, it'll go and then find out the exact value for me. So that means I don't have to go through a 200-page document. It will do that for me. It will understand my question. It will generate an answer for me. I can completely understand that in plain English language. And that's not the end. So what this tool also does is that it can generate a podcast for you and a video cast for you. So for example, let me look at a podcast.
Our goal really is to unpack how this range offers.
So that means just looking at the text document, it has gone and then created a podcast for me. Just like a podcast, it can also generate a video cast for me. So you can see that it has generated a video for me that I can
Hey everyone,
play.
and welcome.
And it has a video that has a relevant
Is Switch
audio.
gonna live?
So, and in each
What's
of
its
these
operating
aspects, I can
environment
understand.
like?
So, and not just that, it can also help me generate a mind map of the complete context of the complete content. So, for example, I can go and then look at the various aspects of um, of the content that I have. So it has made it very easy for me to assimilate a difficult to look at content. Is that okay? So this is not an easy to understand content given the complexity of the brochure that we had, and obviously I had no idea of this document. It's 90-page long document. What AI has enabled me to do is understand this context in a much better form. And as a practical thing, now when you are trying to understand concepts, I would encourage you strongly to use AI. And this is just one of those AI tools to upload content and ask questions. Is that okay? So the best thing it can do for you is help you understand the content in detail. And this is not the end. I use this tool called Google AI Studio, and I literally I just go, and what I do is that I literally upload content. So for example, I'm trying to teach history to my son. I would just go upload the complete book. I'll upload the book, I'll upload, and then I'll ask the questions. Now, the right usage for AI would be for me to try and understand uh, a difficult to understand concept using AI. So it helps me understand that in detail. So that's the first major use of AI. Is that okay? And I feel this is just magical. So for somebody like me, so when I was in school, it was very difficult for me to grab these concepts in detail. Now this is the magic that it has. It makes it easy for me to understand concept. And this is not the end. From business's perspective, let's say if you are in the investment business, or if you are in the equity research business, consulting business, you can literally upload an earnings call or an analyst call to AI, ask it to summarize, give the key highlights, figure out specific parts from within that call, and all of that for free. So you can literally use most of the off-the-shelf products. So, for example, I use Google Notebook. That's the Notebook LM. Alternatively, you can use this tool called Google AI Studio, which is again a free to use tool. All you need is a Google account to do that, or a Chat GPT, which is again mostly free. Or if you have an Airtel connection, then maybe a Comet, which comes with this Perplexity. And all these tools are mostly very affordable these days. You can use these tools to summarize information for you. Is that okay? It can help you transcribe information, summarize information. That means it can look at the audio, transcribe that for you, summarize it for you, so it becomes easy for you to ingest this content. Similarly, if you have a document, just like we had uploaded the brochure of a very tough to understand product, so it's not a usual car that you are buying from a dealership, but a relatively complicated parts document. You can ask questions; it will be able to answer those questions. Similarly, you can upload, let's say, DRHP. So Lenskart has an IPO coming in. You want to understand the IPO. All you need to do is upload the DRHP, ask questions, extract let's say tables from within this document, ask questions about the historical P&L. It will be able to answer these questions for you. So it has become that much easier for you to understand content. And again, this I find very magical. I use this AI called Google Nano Banana. What it does is that it transforms images for me. So, for example, this is my selfie. I ask it to create an image of me taking a workshop, and see what is generated. Now, this is what it generated for me. But if I look closely, you can see that this is not really a me. The person looks like me, but it is not me. So that's where I want to take the cue to the next one, the next part that I have. That's basically prompting. And you can see I am still not taking this session in the class, but now it's more me. Is that okay? This looks relatively closer to me. Again, this is an AI generated image, and that's what Google Banana says. So what I've done is that I've changed the prompt. So what I've done is that I've changed this prompt from just uh, take me to a classroom, taking a session on AI, to a relatively detailed prompt where I clearly say, so make sure that you do not change any features of the face. So the face looks more like me taking the session. And then I explain in detail how I should be in the classroom. So that's a part related to Google Nano Banana. And again, this is a free to use tool. You can just go to Google AI Studio. That's where I edited my selfie. So for example, I I just uploaded my image, put in this prompt. I will also share a link with you where you can just go to Google Nano Banana, and that's where I changed the model to Nano Banana. I'll explain what the model means, and it just takes my selfie and then transforms or transports me to a place where I'm taking a session. So that is the real power of AI. It can uh, read information from you, help you understand that information, edit that information for you. Is that okay? Those are the first parts. And obviously, as I said, uh, uh, the better your prompts are, so the better you explain your work to AI, the better it's going to work for you. So and there are multiple advanced prompting techniques. So for example, there's a prompting technique where I want to clearly tell AI what it needs to do, and the better you explain your need, the better it will be able to act on your need. And I'll share these links with you, with maybe Miss Kamna, where she can share some of these advanced techniques with you, where how do you prompt AI. Obviously there is a detailed session on prompting as well, but the only key takeaway from the first session would be there is a AI tool that's almost free for most of our personal needs, which can help us understand information, collate information, present information, convert it from text to audio, help us understand that better, and learn much better. And then it also has tools to edit images, and the better we direct the AI, the better it's going to perform. And this particular technique is called prompting. So I will share this document with you. You can go to Google, search for Reddit AI prompts, and it'll give you a lot of prompts. Similarly, search for Google Nano Banana prompts. It will give you a lot of Nano Banana prompts. But yeah, I will also share some of these links with you where you can go and then take a look at it. If you just scan this QR code, you can go look at the prompt that I have used to transform my selfie to a new selfie. You can go upload your selfie to the prompt and then see where does it take you. So I would encourage all of you, if you do not have a Google AI Studio account, just go there, create an account for you. It's a free to use tool, and then try to use this. Just do it as much as you do hands-on, the better your understanding is going to be. So that's not the end. It can generate videos for you. So there's this tool called Google VO, which can also convert images into videos, and this is like a 6-8 second video. It's a completely AI generated video for you to understand how does it function. But that's just the illustration. So it can convert images into videos. It can write code for you. So for example, you upload a screenshot of an application that you want to build, and it can write complete code for you. So that's the power that AI has, and I can show you that we have done that for multiple clients. I use the same tool called Google AI Studio. It has this tool called Build, and I will tell you that this is a free to use tool. I encourage you all to use it, just like ChatGPT. And you can go to this one. So for example, I created this complete dashboard just in plain English. So for example, I completely created this dashboard, a mock-up for my client, just using prompting. So I just uh, asked it in plain English to write this code, and it wrote that code for me. So that is the power that it has. So even with minimal information, so my the minimum knowledge of programming, I can still do that, and it can be done in plain English. I encourage you all to utilize the capability of this tool to try and then get some of these jobs done. So whatever your area of work is, I encourage you to try AI, to try ChatGPT, multiple tools like Google AI Studio, Perplexity, and other tools, to at least try and get conversant with AI as much as possible. So so that's where I wanted to show you the power of AI before I went into the details and the nitty-gritties. But would be happy to answer any questions that you have at this point of time. Maybe I'll spend a couple of minutes to look at the questions. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask. I'll pick up some questions and then try to answer. Anybody who would have a question, uh, please let me know. So anyone, just let me ask you a question. Anybody who has actually used Nano Banana to create an image? Google Nano Banana. So just search for Google Nano Banana or the AI Studio, and Google AI Studio. Apart from ChatGPT, these are great to use tools. And again, I'm just focusing on a few Google tools, but it's completely agnostic. It's not really just Google who's developing these tools, but multiple other companies.
Yeah, can I ask one question, sir?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, my question is like, there are so many tools which can generate image. Like in this world of so many generative tool, my question is how to assess. Like, even if you go on trying and testing, it takes time.
Absolutely.
Like, which one is giving or generating the best image, which I want as per the prompt being given.
Sure.
So my basically, because I use generative AI a lot.
Mm-hmm.
but judiciously, not exactly like copying the entire thing and putting
Yeah,
and
sure.
pasting it, but try to figure out whether it is actually aligning with my thought and my concept, what I'm trying to do.
Sure.
So my question is how to assess, like, this particular tool will give me the right image, and nano banana, say for example, or the gamma, or say for example DALI. These are
Mhm.
so many tools are there which
Sure.
generate images. Even Gemini also generate at times images. So in
Sure.
that case, like how to exactly, taking not much time to go for which tool, because notebook LLM is a very powerful and comprehensive tool, very
Sure.
comprehensive tool. But regarding the image generation, at times I feel difficulty which one to
Sure.
go for.
Sure. See, as far as image generation, if you're trying to generate a new image, that means it's not really an image edit thing. Then again, this is more experiential in nature. So my feeling is that sort of DALI does a good job. So you can use DALI or you can use Mid Journey. So those two tools work well. Whereas if you're trying to edit an image, then my feeling is Flux and I think there's a Chat GPT model called GPT-1 or something like that on and then Nano Banana do well. Again, most of this is experiential in nature. So unfortunately I do not have an answer to one tool that can do the job for you. But again, I I, I think it's more your use case specific tools that are being created. I think at some point of time there will be consolidation in the industry and a clear leader would emerge. At this point of time, I think the arena is more open for for more users to try or for more companies to try out with these models and then see what works best. At this point of time, there is no one single answer to which model would work best.
Okay, okay. So for editing, we can go for, you said ChatGPT 1
Google Nano Banana works best for editing. So there is
for
Flux
editing.
and there is Google Nano Banana
Flux,
that work
okay.
well. Yeah,
Flask, okay.
Flux, Flux. So Flux,
FLUX,
Flux.
FLUX.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
That works well for me. For me.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
So
Thank you
DALI
so
is
much.
more if you're trying to generate a new image. And I can get into the details on how it works. For example, DALI works more on a diffusion model. So that means it's more like starting from noise, it tries to create an image. Image editing works a little differently based on the transformer architecture.
And if DALI and Midjourney are for generating new images, is it
Mhm.
possible to apply filters onto those images?
I think that you can do in Nano Banana also. If you want to apply filters, you want to change the hair color or the hairstyle, or you want to change the background. I have tried that on Google Nano Banana. It works very well.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sure. I will just move on. So obviously we've seen some magic that that generative AI could do. The question would be, how does this magic happen? So is this really a magic or is this something else that's happening in the background? So to do that, let me ask this question. So for example, if I were to ask you a question and a fill in the blank, I took my car and I'm going to. So what would be your answer be? So if this is the thing, I took my car, is that okay? And I'm going to, what would be your answer be? Please write on the chat box so that I get a few options. So I took my car and I'm going to, just this sentence, what would be your answer? Anybody who would like to give it a shot? Okay. So Dr. Saswati says that it's the office. Okay, fair enough. What what else could be an option? If this is probably the only part, don't read the lower part. Just I took my car and I'm going to. Would it could be see my office, my home, my gym, to the playground. It can be the airport. Yeah, it can be any of these, right? So there is no context being provided, and I'm asking you to fill in the blank. Now to the service center, absolutely. So it could be any of these. Now what AI, so what generative AI at least has been doing is that it has been trying to complete the sentence for you. So that's it. So generative AI means it's just trying to complete the sentence for you. So predict a word given the context. So if I did not give you context that I took my car and I'm going to, you can say anything. You can start with just hi, how are you? So that could be a possible starting point. But given the context, I took my car and I'm going to. So generative AI, what it's trying to do is that it's trying to complete the sentence for me. So and as you said, it could be my office, my home, it could be whatever you were trying to do. But if I were to update it with the context now, it's 8 a.m. in the morning. Is that okay? I took my car and I'm going to dash. Now, will you update the probabilities? Would you update what could be the next word? So, and if you let me know what could be the possibilities now. So it's 8 a.m. in the morning. I took my car and I'm going to. So I've provided you additional context now, and that's the additional context. It's 8 a.m. in the morning. How would you update? Would you still say the market? Would you still say the service center, a trip, my office, or home? So what would be our most likely next word? Okay, so so market is definitely a possibility. Yeah, yeah. But the most likely word is his workplace or a temple or an office, right? So it will typically not be a home, right? So the way it works is that you have a corpus of words. So what AI has done is that it has looked at multiple sentences. Multiple means multiple. It would have gone through a full Wikipedia. It would have gone through everything that's written on the internet. So that's called pre-training. So it looked at a lot of information that's there on the internet and it figured out that if this were the context, then what would be the next word? Is that okay? So probability the of projecting a new word given the context of everything that has happened before that. Is that okay? So it has looked at all the old sentences on the internet, in the books, everywhere in the world. Is that okay? And then it updates what is going to the next word. So as you said, so somebody said workplace, somebody said office. It is still gym, school, or home also are possible, but you can see the probabilities are relatively lower. Now what AI does is that looking at the context, it generates the next word for you. That's why it's called generative AI. It's generating the next word for you. In effect, it's not really generating, it's just updating the next word for you given the context of the old words. Now, if my old words were not really 8 a.m. in the morning, but it was like more like 7 p.m. in the evening, and I took my car, I'm going to, how would you update the probabilities? Where would your next word be? Would it still be office? Would it still be a gym? Yeah, so so Kirtika still wants to go to office at 7 p.m. Yeah, so a lot of people who are working in BPOs, KPOs, working in the US shift still would be going to the office, but the probability goes lower. And that's where it generates the magic. So it is not generating the same word again and again. But based on the context, if I would tell you I'm working in a BPO, it's 7 p.m. in the evening, so I'm working for the PST time zone. It's 7 p.m. in the evening. The next word most likely would be I took my car and I'm going to the office, or I'm going to the hotel, or I'm going to my home. So those are the updated probabilities. So looking at the context, what AI does is that it tries to update uh, the next word based on everything that is seen in the past. So that's what typically happens in the generative AI. So there are two pieces to generative AI. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on the transformer architecture because you have some more sessions on how AI works. So I'll just give you in a nutshell how this works. So you have an input sentence. What AI does is that it encodes the sentence, so converts this into numbers so that it can find out the probability of the next word. Then it finds the probability of the next word. So once it has that number probability, it converts that into English and then gives you the output. So AI is nothing, it's just a function of input going into an output based on the probabilities of the vectors. So if you were to remember one thing from this section, it would be that generative AI is nothing. It's just a probability of predicting the next word given the old context. Is that okay? And if you can remember one more term from this section, it would be the transformer architecture. So transformer architecture is basically neural network, which is basically this encoder and the decoder, which essentially is some mathematical jugglery on converting an input text into a number and that number getting transformed into another number and then that number getting transformed into text. Is that okay? So if you were to remember, just remember generative AI is basically probability of predicting the next word, and the way that maths works, based on neural network. That neural network is called a transformer architecture. Is that okay? So those are basically vectors that get transformed. So I know this is a bit mathematical in nature, a bit detailed in nature. I can take up a couple of questions on this if you have some. But generally speaking, I would just try to put it like this. So generative AI is a subset of artificial intelligence. Obviously, artificial intelligence is a generic word where machines are trying to simulate what humans are doing. Within this, you have machine learning. Within this, you have deep learning. So deep learning is basically neural networks. So neural networks are, you would have seen those photos, that a neuron of a brain going into another neuron and so on. And generative AI is again a specific deep learning technique that's basically neural networks, and that architecture is called transformer architecture. So just remember these few words, because you're going to see through some of these words over the next sessions. But I can take up a question or two questions and then see. So on what basis probabilities are getting calculated, because it could be home or office. So yeah, this is a good question. So Dr. Saswati, it looks at all the text that has happened in the past. So as I said, the LLMs scrape everything that's there on the internet and the books. So in the books, it has seen that when people said that it's morning 8 a.m., then if they took a car, they were most likely going to the to to their office. So yeah, so time is one of the aspects. There could be multiple other aspects. So in a nutshell, what they do is that it takes a look at all the old textual information, or a corpus of words in technical terms, and then creates a probability. So it has looked at everything that has happened in the past. So based on the time, yes. So time, so it's a conditional probability that it has updated. Yes, it's from the database of old text. That's right. Yes, in the web. That's right. Any other questions that you have on the generative AI piece? Would be happy to look at that. Okay, I will just move on in that case. Now, obviously, we just have to remember that it's a neural network that's updating the next token for you. Now, what are the important levers that you have? So as we saw, so let me go back to Google AI Studio and show you. So, for example, let's say if I were to build a chat, so I'm going to chat now. You can see that there is this first box. I encourage that you create an account. It's easy to create. You can just go now and create. You can see that it has this. If I go to this screen, so for example, let's say I want to chat, I go to this one. It shows that there are multiple options available. So the first option is Nano Banana, then it says Gemini 2.5 Pro, then it says Gemini Flash, it says Gemini Flash, Flashlight, Imagen. So there are multiple options for model. Is that okay? So what does a model mean? So a model is basically the neural network or the calculation engine that calculates the probability of the next word. And and typically these models are classified by how large these models are. So for example, right now the best model that Google has in terms of text generation is 2.5 Pro. It's a very large model. Is that okay? That's why it's very expensive also. If you look at this model, if you give an input text, so you can assume that each token is approximately half a word. So let's say if you are giving a 200,000 tokens, that's going to cost you approximately 100 rupees. So that's approximately $101.25. So that's approximately 100 rupees input. And if you're getting an output of 100 words, that's approximately $10. So $10 is approximately 900 rupees for you. So it's a very large model, as you can see. If you go to a smaller model means the number of neurons in that network are less. So this is relatively much cheaper. So for example, if I'm looking at this model, there is an input of zero point 0.3, so that's approximately one-fourth the cost, and one-fourth the cost for the output also. So that's the Gemini latest. If I go to Gemini Lite latest, that's again almost one-third the cost of the Gemini Flash latest. And then obviously there'll be other models that are cheaper or more expensive. So there will be like a chat GPT also has GPT 4.1, GPT O3, O4. So those are like models that can think and so on. So this is a model that can do a specific task for you. So for example, Nano Banana can edit images for you. You can see that state of the art image generation editing model. This is an image generation and editing. Is that okay? This is Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is basically a reasoning model. It can think for the next step what needs to be done. It can code for you. And then there's Gemini Flash latest, which is like a relatively cheaper model, a smaller model as compared to Gemini 2.5 Pro, and still do most of the tasks for you. It is still a reasoning model. That means it can reason for what needs to be done as the next step. So that's the first thing. So the model essentially is the main neural network or the brain of the AI. Is that okay? So there are specific tasks that the brain can do. This Nano Banana is an image editing brain. This is a text writing brain or a reasoning brain. So there is a key takeaway. So there is a change in the model. So you can change. So if you want to, that's the first one. Then there's system prompt. So this is like a holy instruction that you want to give to AI. What do you want to do in the AI? Is that okay? So you can create a system prompt that can that gives an overall what needs to be done to the AI. So I can say that you are an expert in let's say the Constitution of India. So the moment I say that, the AI's context changes. It now knows that most of the questions I'm going to answer are going to be related to Constitution of India. Is that okay? I can say that you are a very good image editor, and I can say you are a very good image editor for nature. Now, just saying that you are a very good image editor for nature, it sets the context right for AI. Is that okay? Now that's the system instruction. Now everything that you give now, it will take that as an input. A temperature is more like the creativity of the model. Obviously, it's a generative model, right? So it generates a next token for you, as you saw. It takes in inputs and it gives you the probability of the next token. Now, the more varied the next token you want, the more you should set the temperature. So if you do not want a varied output, so for example, you want exactly what AI is reading, then you should set a low temperature. The minimum temperature you can set is 0. I think maximum in this case is 2. Similarly, if you're generating media, so on. Now, there is another important aspect is the thinking mode. So most of the older models, for example, GPT 4.1 or 4, they were not reasoning models. So they could just write text. The newer models, for example, Gemini 2.5 Pro, or GPT-5, those are reasoning models. They can also reason for the next ask. So you can ask it to think, it will think, and then generate the next answer. You can ask it to plan. So plan for this, it will plan and then generate the next output for you. So you can switch this off or switch this on, or you can set a thinking budget saying that this is the maximum number of tokens that I want to spend on thinking. And similarly, you have tools where you can write a structure output, which could be JSON and XML, or you could write code. So those are like more uh, uh, more nuanced things that are there within the model. So broadly speaking, if you were to remember three things, important things. So one is that the model that you want to use, it could be a text generation model, a text editing model, or a translation model. If you're primarily playing with text or planning, you should use a Gemini 2.5 Pro or a Gemini 2.5 Flash, depending on the use case. If you're trying to edit videos, then use Nano Banana. And if you really want to control the cost, then you can use the smaller models. For example, use a Flash, an older version of Flash. Is that okay? So that's the first thing. Then if you want a more creative output, use a higher temperature. If you don't want a creative output, do use a lower temperature. If you want to tell a specific expertise that you are an expert in, let's say Indian Constitution or Indian law, or you want to set a context for the full application, then put that in a system prompt. And if you want a reasoning thing, then switch on the text thinking mode, else remove the thinking mode. Is that okay? So those are the levers that you have as far as the AI is concerned. Now this gives you a place to write a prompt. Is that okay? Where you can write a prompt. So example, let's say if I were to write a small poem, I can just say that I want to use the latest Flash model or the Flash latest model. Is that okay? And I can just say that ready to chat, select I can just say that write a poem for me on generative AI, and it'll generate a poem for me on generative AI. And I can then set a context saying that, so I am a Hindi singer and generate a poem on generative AI form. What it'll do is that it will just go and now write this poem in Hindi. Is that okay? So I've given it a context of that I'm a Hindi singer or I'm a Hindi poet, and generates a poem in Hindi for me. Is it okay? So setting the context is like I have updated the old probability. I said that it's 8 a.m. in the morning. Now, where do I take my car? So I am a Hindi writer. Write a poem in Hindi for me. Is that okay? So that's what a Gemini Flash can do for me. Similarly, if I were to write an image editing thing, I can just go and then edit the image for me. Is that okay? Now, if I don't like this poem, I just want to use, let's say, uh, a more creative poem. I can just say that uh, write another poem for. Now, with a higher temperature, it will generate a relatively more creative poem for me. So you can see that a whisper starts a spark of wires, generative AI awakens and wakens a dream. So a silent loom with digital threads entwined. So you can see that the overall creativity has gone a little notch up. So the more temperature I have, uh, the uh, the more creative the outcome is going to be. Is that okay? Similarly, if I want to set a thinking mode or I want to remove a thinking mode, so without a thinking mode, it will not be able to plan for the next task. With the thinking mode, it can plan for the next task. So, for example, plan for multiple paragraphs and themes for my poem on Chennai. So if thinking mode is off, most likely it is still able to do that. But yeah, with the thinking mode on and a relatively larger model, so for example, if I were to use this and then give it, you can see that it will be able to generate a much better plan for me. So for example, if I would just give this prompt now with a relatively larger model, it will think, you can see that it sets reframing and then it gives me an overall better plan. Is that okay? So if I'm looking for a plan and then execute that plan, you can see that it is now giving me much better. It gives me keywords to be used, narrative goal, and so on. Whereas the previous did not give me a narrative goal and so on. So with the thinking mode, it can plan for the next step much better, and larger model helps me plan for that next step much better. So those are the levers that you have within those within that AI, how you can uh, plan for the next step. So would be happy to take up any questions that you have at this point of time on what a model is, what a neural network is, what a transformer is, or what system instructions are, how does temperature play a role, or any of these aspects that you've seen till now, or how does generative AI function. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Would be happy to answer. Yeah, Gemini 2.5 Pro is definitely a commercial model. It's not free, but most of your personal needs, I think you can use AI Studio or Gemini. So Gemini, Google Gemini, you will be able to utilize that pretty effectively. But it's a commercial, not free model. As I said, that's the cost per token. So you can see that there's a cost per token. And it's proprietary, owned by Google. But you can, if you're looking for an open source model, there is this site called huggingface.co where you can get free models. So that means these models are free to use. These are open source. You can use them anytime. You can download them, run them on your laptop or computer. But again, you need high-end computers to run. More for most personal needs, I think if you're learning AI, I would say that um, just use either ChatGPT or use OpenAI or Google AI or use Perplexity to do your task. Any other questions on either levers? So what is the system instruction? So system instruction is like uh, an overall instruction to the LLM. So let's say instead of giving every time that you are a poet, I can just say that expertise, and I just say you are a poet that writes, let's say, romantic poems. So that's the instruction that I've given. Is that okay? So these are the instructions that I've given. So the moment I do this, every time I write a new poem, it will use this as the baseline. So there's like a prompt that gets embedded within the main prompt. So this is the overall instruction to the LLM. Any other questions that you have at this point of time? Okay. Now that we know what the levers are, and let us look at some of the. So what is this? Yeah. So meaning a set of environment. Yes, yes, that's right, Sasuti. So yes. So these are basically environment fixed communication. So that means it's like an overall goal given to the LLM. That's right. And again, LLM is a large language model. In this case, it was Gemini 2.5 Pro. Yes. So it's the overall sort of instruction given to the LLM. Now, let me come to some of the use cases that some of these use cases we have implemented personally in our organization. That means for our clients. Some of these are like, I understand that these are use cases, important use cases, and I like to share them with you. So, so within technology, I think within software development, the biggest goal and the biggest change that AI is bringing is writing code, and it is a very, very powerful tool. You can just write in plain English, and it can write code for you. So all you need to do is just go to one of these tools. So for example, let me show you this tool called Cursor, and I'll show you one that you can use for free just off the internet also. But there's this tool called Cursor, which is a very, very popular tool. So and just given instructions in plain English, it can write code for you. So you just need to say that this is what I want to do, and as you learn prompting. So in this case, for example, I've written prompts. For example, this is how I do. I even ask it to write architecture documents. I ask it to write product requirement documents. So everything done with AI, right? From describing what the product is. So creating a product requirement document, from the product requirement document, a system design document, from a system design document to a lower level design document, and from there code for modules, the test cases, running the test cases. So the complete code being written by AI, the complete systems being created by AI. And in Cursor, some of you would know, is a very popular tool to do that. So it has like this editor where you can write prompts instead of agents. You can like plant, ask, or whatever. So you can just ask it to write code, and it'll write that code for you. It's a very popular tool. So just like Cursor, there are multiple other tools on the internet available. So for example, as I showed, so Google AI Studio also has this build where you can start to build an application. So you just describe an idea. So for example, I want to, let's say, build a calculator um, for let's say, uh, I want to build an application where I write my mood, and it would write a poem for me. I just do that, and I just use the model. I just say build, and it'll write the complete code for me that I can run, download, whatever I want to do. Again, a free to use application. So that creates the backend for you, the front end for you, everything for you. Is that okay? Just like this, you can use Cursor, which is again a very good tool to write code. You have the the GitHub Copilot again, which can do a lot of stuff for you. So either of these tools work very well. So for example, in this case, if you're starting to learn, I would suggest that you use this or use Lovable, which is again a tool. So Lovable, which is again a tool that you can use to create code, test the code out. So you can just go create the tool, and and run the tool also, run the code also. So you can literally test the code, see that if it's working fine, and if you feel it's working fine, you can just download and then run it on your own machine. So that's the power that these tools have. So as far as and maybe this takes another minute, but before this takes, let's get on the next one. So it can improve the overall developer efficiency by as much as 30 to 40%. So that means if your developer were writing, I don't know, let's say uh, 200 lines of code a day, with this definitely 400, 600, many more lines are possible. And again, overall effectiveness still, I can say that at least 30 to 50% improvement in terms of productivity from software development perspective. And this is across the industry. So that means you could be in project management, product management, developer, QA. All the roles are seeing a huge jump in productivity. Now, if you're in the healthcare sector, again, we are working with multiple clients where if you're looking for drug discovery, and typically after drug discovery, there's a document called CSR, which is a clinical study report that you need to file with the regulator, which in the US is FDA. So you need to look at your clinical study. That means, let's say you administered your medicine on let's say a cohort of 100 people. So there were, let's say, five adverse reactions. You need to document that. Now, from that document, you need to create the CSR or the clinical study report. That takes a lot of time because human has to understand all those documents, then collate the document, create a CSR, then write it out, send that to FDA, which can again give in more comments. Now, with AI, you can understand those documents. As I showed you, you can even understand detailed brochures. You can upload your input documents to AI and use AI to understand what happened in that clinical study. So that means drug discovery becomes much faster. So not just drug discovery. If you are trying to recruit patients for your trial, again, AI is a big sort of help in that. So in terms of drug discovery, documenting your factory processes, which is called APQR, or writing clinical study reports. So all those aspects within life care and health, life sciences and healthcare uh, are changing a lot with the advent of AI. Again, with financial services, if you look at, let's say, an equity research, or you look at portfolio management, AI is playing a huge role. So that means you can again upload documents, understand those documents using AI. Similarly, if you're looking for personalized financial advice, AI is playing a large role. Automation of regulatory compliance. Let's say if you're looking at Basel reporting for banks or reporting for your from your databases to the banks or the regulator, AI is playing a huge role there. Similarly, risk modeling and anomaly detection, um, AI is just changing the landscape. So media, we already saw what AI can do for us. It can create videos, it can create animations, edit photos, create banners, create creatives for you, and similarly, you can track ads. What happened to your ads? Did it give you the right return or not? All that information can be queried using AI. So across industries, multiple industries are being impacted because of the advent of AI. I will take up more case studies, but I will pause here for a minute and then see if you have any questions as far as these use cases are concerned. Any questions, anything that you would like to know in terms of which industries are impacted or how they are being impacted? And in the meantime, let me show you the code that our module would have created. So you can see that it named my application and I can run that application. So example, it asks me if peaceful and only, let's say I want to drive, I'm driving, and it'll write a poem for me. It has created a complete application. I can download the code, I can see the code, it'll compose the uh, it did not write one for me. So I think it's not able to access the AI at the back end to write that poem. But yeah, so yeah. So happy and then I moved to dance. So it created this application for me. I can look at the code. So that means it has the front end, the back end, everything. And I can even run that code online. So so you should definitely try AI to write code as well. So it is not that you need to be a programmer to write code now. You can literally be a product manager with ideas. Just prompt to the AI and it'll help you write the code for you. So Dr. Prada has a question. From your perspective, which industry is poised to gain the most out of AI innovation in the near future, the healthcare or education? So both, I think this is a technology that's going to impact almost all the industries. See, till this point of time, most of the technology impact, or you can say the tech transformation, was on structured data. So that means if you had a database with structured numbers, you could write code to understand that, use that, analyze that data. It is now possible to do that in English also. That means unstructured data. That means if you have legal documents, if you have tax related documents, if you have education, you have healthcare, where a lot of information was there, but that information was mostly in language documents. So that means education, you can see most of the books are like not structured databases. They are English books, right? So even maths is mostly English in nature. Similarly, if you look at healthcare, as I said, most of the drug discovery, whatever studies were happening were plain English. If you look at legal, most of the documents are contracts, which is English. Now it's possible to convert that English document into structured documents, or you can use the generative AI to understand those documents. So that means all those industries where till now there was no possibility of analyzing those documents, all of a sudden AI is helping you do that. So I think these industries are going to be changing a lot. And interestingly, AI is one aspect that's going to change a lot of industries, not of one particular industry, but I think a lot of these industries, and healthcare, education, legal, tax, consulting, these are definitely going to be impacted a lot. So I think one question that Pulatha is Ponlatha, sorry, Ponlatha has asked is whether infographics can get created using AI Studio. It is possible, and I can show you one that I did. So I actually created an application that can create infographics as well, and I show you how they were created. Actually, you can write code uh, to create infographics. So yes, yeah. So this is one application that I created, and this is again plain English. So, for example, I provided with a particular format of chart, and I asked AI that I would provide it, so it should convert this chart into code that it can later utilize. So, for example, I asked, I'm providing you the format of the chart, interpret the styles and used in the chart, convert this interpretation into C1 Python code. So that means from the image, I asked it to convert into Python code, and then it understood the full format for me. I provided it with new data set, and it just run the code for me and created an infographic for me. So completely possible. Would be happy uh, to share some of these prompts with you as well. Yeah. So it is completely possible to create these infographics using AI. So Preeti has a question. In case of drug discovery, in addition to documentation, how can AI help in target identification or lead discovery? Sure. So patient recruitment is one place where I think AI can play a huge role. Because right now what happens is that you when you are when you are sort of recruiting the patient, or you are sort of targeting the patient, you have to go through a lot of history of the patient, and a lot of times that history is in the form of documents, English written documents, or their old history, which is basically English. Now, somebody has to read through that English, figure out who the right patient could be, whether the age matches, whether the symptoms match, whether his sort of there's a match for the patient or not, and that takes a lot of time. What AI can do for you is again understand this document, from this document, summarize everything, and then help recruit the patient for you. So that means shortlisting the patient, drafting communication to the patient to get recruited. All of that can be done with AI. Let me move on. Just like the old industry that you spoke about, customer service is one place where AI will definitely play a huge role. It is already taking over a lot of customer service roles. That means you can write a chat bot, you can write an audio bot using AI, and that can help you look at queries. So if you have a product related query, it can help you answer that query for you. So, for example, if I'm trying to shortlist a car, I would need to go to a salesman and then try to understand the features. Now I can just ask AI in plain English what I'm looking for, what my requirements are, and it can help answer those questions. Similarly, most of the L1 questions, that means the first level of questions, can easily be answered with AI. Similarly, ticket creation, ticket automation is uh, is a complete possibility. In retail and e-commerce, if you're looking at personalized ads, so most of the ads are being run by GenAI these days. Similarly, if you're looking for virtual assistant, chatbots, demand forecasting, uh, those tasks can be routed to AI, which can help you complete them. AI, as I already told you, when I try to teach my son, all I would do is upload the book to AI, ask questions, ask it to generate evaluation questions that I can give to my son, who can then attempt those questions, and then even provide the written answers to AI, help evaluate. Obviously, the first level of evaluation. So AI. As the professor before me was saying, does hallucinate a lot. You need to put your own brains along with it. It just makes your task easier. But I think this is one place where definitely, again, there's going to be huge change within the industry because of AI. So I have a question: can cursor or lovable modify existing code or a DL model for improvisation? Definitely, definitely. Most of these AI, you can upload the code. So, for example, cursor has this concept of upload code and then vectorize that code for you. And once you have that code ready, it can then go and understand that code. Definitely, it can understand code, your existing code or the existing repo also, and then help you based on your old code base also. That is completely possible. So if you go to, you can add a new folder to the workspace. It'll automatically uh, go and put that code in for you. So you can see that, so sort of the agents and tools and MCP. So if you have an MCP, you can literally put in that MCP and use that. Similarly, if you have code indexing, yeah. So if you have code, so for example, all my code is being indexed. So that means it knows that code. It has embedded that code within itself. You can add as many repos as you have, and it will put that in the context of what you want to write. So it stores that in a vector form, not in a plain English form, but in a vector form, so that you can use it uh, within your new code that you're trying to write. So it can edit and help you write new code based on the old code. So so any other additional questions that you have as far as the industry impact is concerned? Anything else that you would like to know? This is another Q&A. So I think Rana Mukherjee had put in a question some time back. Will Gen AI limit human creativity? I don't think so. I think it isn't really a replacement for human creativity. It's just an additional tool available for human creativity. So the image that you have to create is still dependent on how you think or what your requirement is. It still does not reduce your creativity. So in terms of what needs to be done, that is still your thinking. It will just do the job for you. So just like if you had a Photoshop editor who would just edit the photo for you, so that is what AI is doing for you. If you want to edit a photo, take me to the classroom, that's still your thinking. It is not AI's thinking. So I think in terms of creativity, I don't think it's going to limit human creativity. It's just going to augment it and and do it much better for you. And does that answer your question? Yeah, it is your partner. Absolutely. So, as Dr. Saswati put it, it is your partner in what you're trying to do. It is a tool that you have. It is a very similar question. If you had, let's say, a car, would you still walk? No. So, a lot of times, the car helps you get from place A to place B much faster so that you can do other stuff rather than just walk and be there. It's just simply augmenting your work. That's right. I agree. I agree. Let's get to some of the challenges. I think you all know that, as I said, generative AI is a probabilistic model. So that means it is just trying to predict what the next word is, right? So, for example, I took my car out at 8 a.m. I want to go to. Obviously, you could be going to play tennis in the morning with your friends, but that doesn't mean that AI understands that. AI just thinks that you're going to go to your office. So and says it's going to generate the next word just based on what it has seen. So it can hallucinate. So there is nobody, there's no guarantee that it will give you the right answer. So and that's the biggest problem with AI these days. So and I think professor before me was giving an example in the US court when a lawyer used AI to generate case studies, it would keep hallucinating. So within the US, what happened is that the lawyer presented some facts from ChatGPT to the judge. The judge asked for more information. The lawyer went home, asked ChatGPT for more information. It generated more information that was given to the judge. Judge asked for more, more was given, and so on. So that kept on and on. At some point of time, the judge said, "Enough is enough. I want to see the source document." And unfortunately, there were no source documents. So AI was hallucinating the answers. So there is no guarantee that the information given by AI would be factually 100% correct. There is no guarantee. Is that okay? And that guarantee probably is what is the most important aspect from a lot of enterprise customers. So a lot of customers don't want any ambiguity. They don't want to see wrong results. I think that's one place AI lag. So there is no guarantee that it will not hallucinate. So that problem of giving out information that is not correct, is that okay? That's called hallucination, and uh, and definitely AI is bound to have those issues while generating content, because the way that AI has been created is basically um, a model where the next word is being predicted. That means it could be wrongly predicted. There's no guarantee that it will be correct. So that's the problem of hallucination. So out there you can see that if I force, was there ever a US senator that is this, it just creates a story. It's a good story writer. Obviously, now you have seen that it can look at your documents and then generate answer also, because you've provided it additional context, but it is still a story writer. So that means it can hallucinate, is it can generate or cook up a story for you. That's the biggest and probably the first problem that AI has. The next is privacy. So the moment you upload your document to AI, it can get trained on this new document. So that means, let's say if you were to put your personal information on AI or your company's specific information on AI, just like AI is looking at the internet and giving you some answers, it will look at your information and give new answers. So that means if your personal data is being shared to AI, it can use this data to generate new answers. and that means if you are sharing information that should not be shared, some public information, some um, your company specific information that is not allowed to be shared, AI will look at it and generate the next answer based on the data that it has seen. And that again tends to be one of the biggest issue from regulated industry perspective. So that means if you're in healthcare, banking, insurance, um, none of this information is allowed to be shared. And um, and, and as you can see, AI gets trained on the new data that it sees. So that tends to be a big problem from utilizing AI perspective. The third, again, when you start it, it is a bait and switch strategy. So it is free. You can see ChatGPT is free. I told you, AI Studio is free, but the costs rake up very soon. So you can see that ChatGPT is free, then Go is 400 rupees a month, plus is 2000, and you have a Pro which is like 20,000 a month. So the costs rake up very soon. So that means as you start using AI seriously, especially from work perspective, it is costly to use. And I think a lot of times generating ROI from utilizing AI tends to be very difficult. So I've seen a lot of projects um, getting into trouble because the overall cost of implementation, the overall cost of using AI was not cheap. And in a country like India, where you have labor, which is relatively more cost effective, it is still a challenge uh, to utilize AI for at a cost effective manner. So as you scale, Gen AI tends to be pretty expensive. So in terms of the three issues I see, so one is hallucination, the second is privacy, the third is cost. Cost, I think, still there will be some justification because it can scale and do a lot of stuff. But privacy and hallucination, in my view, are perhaps the two biggest factors in terms of adoption. Again, as I said, there are solutions that people are trying. So for example, when you see that AI is hallucinating, you give it more context of your particular use case, and then it tries to give answers just based on your use case. So you can put in more guardrails in terms of privacy, in terms of what kind of an outcome can come out. Is that okay? But again, there's no guarantee that your required outcome will come. I think a fourth point that's probably missing in my presentation is bias. So what happens is that AI generates the next word based on what it has seen in the past. So, for example, in the past, if it has seen that women had been working at home and men had been working in job, and next time you ask a question in the morning, I'm doing my household chores, and this is what I'm doing. It tried to build that based on a woman persona, whereas you maybe a man who's working at his home in the morning. So that means it automatically brings in that bias, and that is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that means if it gets biased, it generates new content based on the bias that it has, and just continues with that. And that could be a big issue, especially when you're trying to design systems that are sort of forward looking. AI, since it has looked at the past information, will just keep predicting what has happened in the past, and I think that bias will become a huge issue in the long run. So those are, in my view, some of the issues that we need to take care of. Um, so, um, so bias, cost, privacy, and hallucination. So I would say that these are the primary issues that we need to take care of. So any questions as far as these parts are concerned? So in terms of what are the limitations that AI has? Any questions that you have? Am I still audible? Is this interesting? Hello, am I still audible? Oh, oh,
Yes, yes, yes.
okay, understood. Because there's no action, I just thought I'll ask. So, fair enough. So any questions that you have right now? Yeah. I think people probably understand these parts better because a lot of news articles on the limitations and the problems that AI has seen in the past. Fair enough. So maybe so that's the core concepts that I wanted to cover. I want to spend some time on agentic AI, maybe another 5 or 7 minutes, and then I'll open this for more questions that you may have. Is that okay? Now, as I said, most of the AI till this point of time has been generating text. That means you give it an instruction and it will generate text for you. There is definitely utility, for example, in terms of transcribing, writing blogs, creating content, creating images. Those were the primary use cases that AI was supposed to have. What has happened recently in the last, I think, few months is there's a new concept of agentic AI where apart from generating text, AI has been given a task of executing a function. So that it means it has tools and it can think. So there are two or three things that it is doing. So one is goal oriented planning. So that means if I give it a goal that you need to accomplish a task for me. So for example, I want you to write a CSR report. I want to write a clinical study report or I want to reply to an RFP. So there is a new RFP that has come from the government. I want to reply to that RFP. Is that okay? Now, as a human, when you start thinking, you would say, oh, fair enough. When I want to reply to this RFP, I will have to collect, understand all the requirements, collect all the supporting documents, look at the supporting documents, and then draft a reply. See if there is some limitation that I have that I will not be able to qualify the RFP. So, for example, is there any bank guarantee? Do I have the capacity to put in that bank guarantee? Do I have the relevant capabilities to execute that contract and so on? So, I would think through that plan and then I would execute this plan one by one. Now, all of a sudden, if you think about it, this is also like generating text, thinking, or reasoning, and then acting. So what has happened recently over the last few months is that most of these new models that are coming up, for example, Gemini 2.5 Pro, it can think. That means it can reason, and then it can act. So it can react. And it learns and then adapts and so on. So this concept is called an agentic AI. It also has tools. That means it can call some functions. So for example, let's say if I were trying to look at my credit report and then see if I can provide that bank guarantee, it will have a function which can go to the bank and then see if I can give a bank guarantee or not. So these agents are like LLMs. They can plan for the next action, execute that action with a tool or a function, and then take the next action. And they have become very powerful because now all of a sudden you are not just generating content, but you are doing useful work for yourself, and that is just too powerful. So ChatGPT actually has an agentic mode. So for example, if you look at a ChatGPT or a comment. So Perplexity has this agentic mode. You can do a deep research. Is that okay? Or if you go to the labs, you can you can do a deep research. For example, I let's say if I want to go to the labs, so I want to buy a new car which is cost effective for a family of four. Is that okay? What it'll do is that it'll think. So, for example, you can see it is building a plan for me. So this is an agent that is acting now. Is that okay? It can even go and then buy a car for me. It looks at the resources. Is that okay? The first step, for example, it searched for the best cost-effective car for a family of four, top value families. So it searched for this information, gathered images. Is that okay? And so it highlighted that these are the possible cars that could be there. Then it updated this information for me. Is that okay? It updated all the sources for me. It goes to that site, extracts that information. So step by step it takes a lot of action. So you can skip all the remaining actions. I will not bore you with all the steps, but yeah, it has created a plan, executed that plan one by one. It goes to this website, extracts this information, gets this information, then based on this takes the next action and so on. So and then recommends the car. So I can just skip and it'll create a chart for me. Now so and So what these agents are doing. So, and similarly, there are other browsers that can do for you that for me. For example, ChatGPT recently released this this AI browser called Atlas, which is again free download. You can use that. Or there is this agentic browser called Dia. So what it can do for me is that it can do, let's say, it can search all the prompting techniques for me. So what are the prompting techniques for me? It creates a full list and then creates summary of that. So they're agents. So they have access to tools. So for example, in this case, it had access to a website search tool. It had access to a tool that can go to the website, extract all the information, and then act based on the new information that it has had. Is that okay? So similarly, there are multiple use cases within this. So if I can just maybe show you the use case and then just hold on. So I can, so in this case, what it does is it creates a full business intelligence tool for me. And this is a tool that we have created um, within my company. So for example, there's a full database of let's say room inventory that I have. It will just go there, search for the relevant room inventory, write write SQL code, and then execute the full task for me. Okay, it can reason and approach. Then based on that approach, I want to do the next action. It can do the next action for me. Search for information on Google within the database, write SQL queries, search for internet information on the internet, and then get the job done for me. So net, what agents are more powerful than just plain generative AI, because generative AI was primarily just generating text for me, whereas agents think, act on that information, and then do a task for me. So all of a sudden, generative AI has taken a new meaning, where sort of it's not just generating text but doing tasks for me. So and these are some of the key use cases for agentic AI, that's solving complex problems. So for example, we asked it to figure out the right inventory for me. We asked it to search for the right car for me based on my requirement. It can also take autonomous decision. For example, eventually what most of the AI companies are planning to do is that allow for sales within ChatGPT. So that means ChatGPT will search the information for you, even do the transaction for you, and buy the car for you at some point of time. So there are multiple workflow automations that are happening using agentic AI. So and these are multiple demos that are there. Now, now before I summarize everything, would love to ask if you have any questions uh, that I can answer. Would love to answer some of those questions that you may have, or I can take you through more stuff around agentic AI, what's happening within agentic AI, and any questions that you have for me. So, would you prefer agentic AI? It is not about my preferences, but definitely industry is adopting agentic AI in a big way. So we are working with multiple clients on the agentic AI piece. So that means sort of people are trying to autonomously automate a lot of these tasks. So, for example, as I said, looking at reports, taking the next course of action, um, uh, writing legal documents, writing the CSR document. So, a lot of these use cases are being automated with agentic AI. So we prefer you give lectures on agentic AI. Would definitely love to do that if given a chance. Uh, so would definitely coordinate and see if I can be a part. But I can definitely share whatever I know with you. So Preeti has a question. You mentioned about bias. What kind of confounding variables can introduce bias? See, the way these models are trained on historical data. So one of the biggest places where there is unfortunately no solution to reduce that bias is it looks at historical information and then predicts the next information. So, for example, it has looked historically that at 8 a.m. most of the people are going to work. So the probability of saying at 8 a.m. took out my car and I'm going to work. Now this is also kind of a bias. At 8 a.m. I could be very well going to the gym or going for exercise. But since most of the people have been going to work, it has automatically made up its mind that it's going to work. So some of these biases are more inherent in the way the LLM has been trained, and some of these biases come because when we write prompts, we tend to provide the prompt to AI in such a way that it gives a biased answer. So the prompts you can still control. Pre-training, unfortunately, given the large corpus of data on the internet that AI has seen, it's very very difficult to control that. So so some of those are possible. Some of these are probably not possible to be controlled. So I'll maybe just summarize. I think there's one more question. Yeah. So I'll maybe just summarize the first session for you. So we saw what generative AI is, how powerful a tool it is, and what it can do for you. And I would really encourage you to give it a try. Most of these tools, at least from a personal usage perspective, are free. So you should go to a notebook LLM, you should go to a chat GPT, you should go to Gemini, try to use these tools for transcribing, summarizing, so that you understand or get a feel of what this tool can do for you. Similarly, try to write code. Even if you're not a programmer, still go and try to write code. Is that okay? Second thing to understand is this is not magic. This is just predicting the next token, looking at the context. Is that okay? It is the overall mathematical model is huge in nature. It has almost started simulating the human brain, but still, it is not magic. It just looks at the old information, tries to predict the next word. That is what is happening at the end of the day. And the second thing, if you can remember from within this second session, was that the model or the brain that controls this neural network is called the transformer. Is that okay? It's the transformer architecture. Then we saw that sort of how you can twist some of these knobs within the model. So you how do you change the model, how do you change the temperature and so on. Then we looked at what kind of force it is, and how this is transforming not one industry but multiple industries in a single go. So as a concept, I think Gen AI has arrived, and we definitely need to be cognizant of that fact. We need to learn and embrace the tool, and then get the maximum out of it. So then we saw that even though this tool is pretty good in nature, still it comes with its own risk. So primarily bias, cost, privacy, hallucination. So those things we need to keep in mind whenever we are designing solutions or we are using AI. Is that okay? And even with those limitations, still it is very powerful. And the next frontier as far as AI is concerned is really agentic AI. And it's again easy to use. You can just use Cursor, which is free to download, at least for the basic thing you can use. Similarly, try to build applications using an AI Studio or a Lovable. Most of these agents are, at least the basic versions are free to use. You can use, test it out, and then build your knowledge. So I do hope that at least some part of the presentation was useful for you, and I do hope to interact with you sometime in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paramdeep ji, for this session. In a very simple language, you explained the magic or the non-magic of AI and all the tools which are available, and for encouraging all the faculty members to actually try their hands on these tools which are free to use and get a hang of it, because as they use it, they'll learn, they'll find out more about how to use it even better.
Absolutely.
And thank you. That was a very informative and enriching session. So thank you so much. We also hope to get you back for some more sessions.
Sure.
So hope to see you soon
Sure.
again.
Sure.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to our next session, and I'll invite Dr. Prakash Koteti to join us. He's on the call. Dr. Koteti, you
Yeah,
are there?
yeah. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, madam.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing
Good
good.
to have you back for the sessions.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
just let me introduce you to the faculty members. We are very privileged that Dr. Prakash Goretti is joining us. He's a master trainer, and the topic is Gemini AI, generative music and generative audio. Dr. Goretti is with Tech Mahindra, and here he focuses on infusing AI and agile methodologies into business processes to catalyze transformation and growth. So this basically means he designs sophisticated learning solutions and he contributes to the skill development initiatives, leveraging his expertise in AI, ML, and project management. He's also has a background as an assistant professor. So he has a robust academic foundation which he brings to the core when he's taking sessions and enriches the mentoring and development program that he leads. So I will encourage you to engage with him, to ask him as many questions as come to your mind. Listen attentively to what he's saying because he also asks questions in between. So just
Yeah.
preparing you that if you listen carefully, then you'll be able to answer his questions and also at the end take the assessment which will earn you your Atal certificate. So over to you, Dr. Goretti. Please take it forward.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kamna, for the opportunity. Good evening, everyone. I think I understand this is the last session for today, but
For
we will
today.
try to make it. We'll make it as much as interactive and informative. Right? Both are very important. So, good evening, everyone. So, we'll look at
I think Mr.
few
Vamsi has a
important things.
question. There's
Yeah,
one person has raised their hand.
I am checking that.
Yes.
What is the question? I'm not able to see, madam. Can you check?
No, I'm also not able to see. Not able to see the question. Anyway, I've asked them to unmute. If they can unmute, they can ask their question. It's fine. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. In this session, we'll be having a deep dive into generative AI. What is generative AI? Because this is today first day. I know that you must have gone through some of these concepts earlier, but connecting these dots is very, very important. And then we will understand how Gemini is powerful in large language models and key differentiator when it comes to multimodal content generation, right? When I say multimodal content generation, is a combination of text, images, video, audio, and all that, right? So that's why our scope is specific to generative AI and generative music and generative audio. Essentially, what we look at is when you develop certain applications, it is important that we understand how do we leverage these large language models, right? Essentially, what we are looking at is that there are many models are available, right? Now, how do we choose? For example, Gemini we have taken in this as an use case, right? What is the genesis behind that? So similarly, same approach will be helpful to you even in picking up some other large language model, right? That is the intent of it. So before that, let me ask you a question. What is generative AI? What is artificial intelligence? You can type in the chat box or you can speak.
Sir, that AI is that mimics human intelligence, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Programming, like it tries to mimic the human-like behavior,
Mm-hmm.
responses, basically
Okay.
AI, uh, because we, the programmer, are the constructor of AI.
Mm-hmm.
The AI is nothing but the manifestation of the human intelligence. We could rather say like
Okay.
this.
Okay. Good.
And this generative AI is like normal AI is what we are talking about, the traditional AI, the machine learning models and all those stuff. But later on, with the introduction of this deep learning model and the neural network model, we came across all this LLM model, which
Yeah,
basically is eventually leading towards the generative AI.
yeah, very good. So we will be looking at a deep dive into entire AI ecosystem, right? To understand that, we'll have a revisit on that. Uh, and we are not looking at a formal definitions, right? Because we are not students to ask, what is formal definition of AI, right? But what we are interested in to articulate clearly what is AI about and what exactly we need to look at in terms of uh, you know use cases, right? Whether it is AI or what is it ML, some clarity is very much important. So I will be touching up on that. So this is the agenda for today's session. So we look at a brief overview on generative AI in general, and we also see architecture components of GenAI. After that, we delve into Gemini AI and the role of Gemini for multimodal content generation. So, for that, we understand the life cycle of model development, how these models are leveraged, right? That's what we understand. Then, subsequently, we'll see the representation of music, because this session is precisely about music as a content, right? So we look at intricacies of music as a data, and how do we leverage GenAI for that. Then once we understand the representation of music as a data, then we also need to get some domain knowledge, right? Because in these applications, when you think of uh, without domain knowledge, we will not be able to interpret on what is getting generated, right? So it's very important that we acquire little bit of domain knowledge, which is equally important even for other disciplines as well, right? So then we delve into generative models for music, right? I will show you some practical use cases of how generative AI is being leveraged uh, in general, right? In music industry or film industry, for example, things like that, right? So to start with, we need to understand entire AI ecosystem, right? Like uh, our professor said, right? AI, we more or less refer to developing applications which will mimic human intelligence, right? But more precisely, it is not just mimicking human intelligence, but we want to develop applications which that can think beyond what human intelligence can do. But where it is lacking currently, right? It is lacking in terms of response, right? Response time. For example, if you take self-driving car, so do you really use some artificial intelligence robot as a replacement of driver? Not confidently at this point in time, right? And similarly, these agents, right? Do they have some kind of s- sensors which can sense like the way we sense human being, like smell and all that, right? So there are few areas where still there is a lot of work is going on. That's why when you say artificial intelligence, so far the journey we had is about developing applications which actually support human being, right? That is called weak AI. So now we understand there are two things here, right? One is strong AI, other one is weak AI. So weak AI applications are those applications which potentially learn from the data and subsequently will give you uh, learning from that learning experience, right? So either it can be prediction of something, or it can be like you know, recommendations, that so on and so forth. So in entire ecosystem of AI, we have different domains and subdomains, right? Next is artificial intelligence, subsequently machine learning. I'm sure most of you are faculty, you are aware of what is machine learning. So the machine learning predominantly focus on learning and interpreting from the data, right? So the primary objective of ML models is to unearth certain details which are hidden and not obviously clear in for the human being to get that kind of inferencing, right? So powerful inferencing that you want to draw by applying these machine learning techniques. Next, one level below that, we have a deep learning, which is essentially based on neural networks, right? Deep neural networks. So why they are called deep, we will discuss in detail at length. And deep learning is fundamental computational model for subsequent application development, right? Now, so next thing is the specialized discipline, which is generative AI, which is again a class of deep learning models which are designed to generate new content, which can be text, it can be images, or it can be multimodal stuff, right? So which is predominantly based on generative adversarial networks, or what we call as GANs, and large language models, or LLMs. Something beyond that is comes as agent. Agent is an encapsulator, right? Suppose you have some fever, right? Or we have some fever. You take a capsule, right? What we do with capsule is we swallow the capsule, right? We don't, if you even open that capsule and see the contents, you just see some uh, chemical substance, right? But you cannot interpret internal representation and internal structure of that chemical composition, isn't it? So that is truly what we call encapsulation, isn't it? Similarly, you develop an application which can be either of these cases, whatever listed out here, but you try to encapsulate this application as a single agent, right? So that it can perform certain tasks. One is, suppose if you develop a bot, right, for a healthcare application. So your bot is front ending and responding to certain charts that we have. Now we assume that you have requirement of multiple such bots, right? Now you need to encapsulate each of them as an agent. These agents are communicating with each other the way, similar to human beings interact with each other, right? Now, if you what why it is important, right? So it brings in paradigm shift in the way IT operates way forward. For example, when you think of a project and delivery, we normally look at FT, right? Full time effort and all that. FT and how many people are required for the project. Now, way forward, the conversation we can expect is something like, how many are human beings, how many agents you are using, right? So what is the effort estimate for the human beings, and what are the agents that you are orchestrating in this? So agent orchestration is going to be one of the most uh, prominent thing that we are going to see in future. And that is the reason even the software engineering that we are very much familiar with several decades, right? That is going to change, because the way we operate in software development life cycle, like requirement analysis and design, coding, testing, right? All these phases, there is going to be significant change as when it comes to estimating efforts in various phases of your development life cycle, isn't it? So fundamentally, for any computation model, you need to understand the representation, right? So let me just explain you the computation model, how it works. One minute. You can see my screen, I think, right? Yeah. So let us understand traditional computation model. What is traditional computational model? Let me check the chart. So can you just tell me how the traditional computational model works? You have input, and then you have process, you have output, right? This is our traditional computation model, right? Now, in AI discipline, for example, what is your computation model? Yeah, you will give data input. Of course, this is data, right? You will give data, and you also give expected output also. This is your model, and you get program. Is this clear? So in traditional development, this is my AI computation model, right? So in traditional computation model, your process is nothing but algorithms and functions, right? So you define various operations here. Whereas in this case, when you think of a model, especially in AI, we are talking about kind of neural network, right? Or it can be some other model. So essentially, here your model is a function, right? Which maps your x to f of x, right? So in both the cases, we need to understand data representation, right? So in this case, data representation, when you say, you talk about integer, float, string, etc., right? But when it comes to data here, we talk about structured, semi-structured, and unstructured, right? Yes or no? So these are you differentiate your data types, right? Now, depending upon the model It can be a what type of models we have in machine learning, for example, right? We have generative models. What are the models? Can you just type? For example, machine learning, what are the models that we have? SVM, decision tree. Yeah, these are the classification models, right? I will show you that. We have a slide for that. No, we'll discuss those things. So when I say models here, one is generative model, other one is discriminative model. So generative models are also called probabilistic models. These are functions like, for example, linear regression, logistic regression, all these are discriminative models, right? So generative AI, when you talk about, the essence of it is coming from generative function. So let us understand generative models, right? So when I say generator, implicitly we have data generators. So what does it mean? Suppose I have a data set with some features x1, x2, and I have outcome variable y. It has two classes, right? Now I will filter out all the data of x1, x2 with all positive class together, and again data points with all negative class. Now I can think of a distribution here. Suppose it has a crazy distribution like this. Now this distribution I can fit to some mathematical statistical distribution, right? For example, normal distribution, which has two parameters x given mu and sigma, is given by 1 by 2 pi root sigma e to the power of minus x minus mu whole square by 2 sigma square, right? So given this distribution, assume that this is positive class distribution. Now you look at a new data point x new, you compute, you fit this into this distribution, get the probability value. Similarly, you have this is n plus, similarly you have n minus distribution, right? And try to see which one is giving more probability, and you say that argmax of among either plus minus of positive distribution and negative distribution, right? That will be your class prediction. Any question or comment on this? Is it clear? Now let us say let me get into this, right? So we understand that here your data types are structured, semi-structured, unstructured, and the entire ecosystem of AI is something like this. We have at highest level, you have artificial intelligence as a discipline. Then you have machine learning. Below that, more specialized discipline called deep learning, and subsequently you have generative AI layer, and below that you have agentic AI. So this is entire AI ecosystem, right? Now, to develop models on this AI ecosystem, what we need to understand is representation of the data. Data representation is very important. Unlike our other traditional model, where your data representation, you always look at, you know, data types, integer, float, character, string, etc. But here, these three: structured, semi-structured, and unstructured, right? Now, when you decompose various uh, specializations out of artificial intelligence, then these are the domains, right? So this is very important slide, because suppose I wanted to do research in artificial intelligence. So fundamental thing I must know is that I need not master all these areas. For example, I need not master vision plus speech plus NLP plus ML plus. It is not like that, right? To some extent, you might be required to have a little bit of peripheral knowledge on other domains, but you will be focusing on one particular domain, whether you want to work on computer vision, or you might be interested in natural language processing, or you are interested in core machine learning and algorithms pertaining to machine learning, right? But you can also choose areas like language translators, or linguistic model development, like speech to text, text to speech, and all that, right? So within natural language processing, you can think of information extraction and sentiment analysis or document classification, grouping of the documents. Subsequently, in machine learning, you will see specialization as a deep learning, where you develop models for supervised learning and unsupervised learning, so on and so forth. So broadly, machine learning is uh, y- divided into various sub areas, which can be supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. So within supervised learning, where the data on which your models are getting trained are labeled data. Labeled data means you have features x1, x2, xn, and you also have y as outcome variable. So if your outcome variable is something like floating point value, then it becomes a regression model. So you have features and you have a y. So if it is discrete, then it is classification problem. Okay. On the other hand, suppose you have features, D is the dimensions, number of features. Now Y is floating point value. That means Y is continuous. Then you want to develop a model. Y prediction is f of x1, x2, xd. Then since Y is discontinuous, it is regression model. Whereas in this case, you develop a model xd, but it is categories, right? like for example, want to classify images as cat, dog, etc., or you want to do medical imaging of X-rays. You want to see here whether it is a pneumonia of chest X-ray or just congestion, positive, negative, like that, right? So these are the various use cases where you will be having label or Y, but there might be data without Y, right? In fact, in real life application development, nobody will give you the labels, right? You try to put the labels. So essentially, I have features, let's say D features. Now these D features, and I want to group them based on certain degree of similarity. I will look at degree of similarity, and based on that, these data points are grouped into different groups, right? This is called clustering, right? Are you following? Any question here? Because we are slowly getting into this uh, you know generative way how it works, but unless we connect all the loose ends, right, it will be difficult for us to understand. Any question or comment on this so far? Understand that you all unmuted, isn't it? So let me check chat if you have any question. Yeah, somebody is saying one question. Dr. Saraswati, madam, you want to ask a question? What is then instance-based model? Yeah, very good, excellent question. Uh, where is my this thing? So there is something called instance-based learning, right? One example for this is uh, K nearest neighbor classifier. So how K nearest neighbor classifier works is that when you say instance-based learning, you don't define a function a priori, something like this. Instead, what you do is that given a new instance, this is new instance, you want to predict whether it is positive class or negative class. Now, this is my data set with features. Assume that D features. Now, how do you understand these features? For example, if you say that temperature, and you can think of headache, and you also put some parameter like fever. Fever already we have temperature, right? Headache. Then you might be having some other fields like platelet count, right? Then hemoglobin. These are all my features. Finally, I have a label plus and minus. This label refers whether the person is having dengue fever or not. Now, this is a classification problem, and you are looking at various characteristics or parameters such as temperature, headache, platelet count, etc., to decide or diagnose whether the person is having the symptoms of dengue fever or not, right? So in this case, I used a word called symptoms, right? So these are the attributes essentially. In general, these are the attributes which describes your label, right? When it comes to typical discriminator models, you always have functions, right? Y is equal to f of temperature, headache, platelet count, hemoglobin, and when a new data point is given, x, from x you have corresponding temperature, corresponding parameters. Based on that value you predict. Okay, but unlike this model, instance based learning, what happens is your x new also has a tuple with specific values for each attribute. So what you do is you compute the distance, you measure the similarity. So you will say that for each instance in my data, you say that compute distance of x new and this current instance, and you record this, right? You record this. For example, you have a column called distance from the new example of this record. Let's say 3 units. But you already know this record is a positive class. Similarly, you already know the labels, 2 units, 1 unit. So with respect to new instance, you compute these distances. After that, you sort them in ascending order of distance. Now, whichever is closest match to this particular new example, look at the class label. So since this new instance is close to majority of these instances, for example, k is equal to 5, if you choose, you take 5 records, 5 rows, which are having less distance from this x new, and out of these 5, you look for majority. That means 3 of them is labeled as positive class, then x new is a positive class. If 3 of them are labeled as negative class, x new is negative class. So that's why your k has to be even, because otherwise we don't know the majority class, right? Since you are comparing your new data point with each instance in the data set, you normally don't have the feasibility to construct a mathematical function. That's why it is called instance based learning. And your k means clustering and k nearest neighbor algorithms, which are based on similarity measure, they referred normally as instance based models. Is this clear, madam? No, no. My question to you is it clear when I say instance based learning? Now I am getting into the next question. Is it not the training starts when new instance is fed into the model and then clustering takes place? See, clustering is a separate activity, right? It depends upon your goal, right? Your goal is to group the new data point into existing groups, then it is clustering. Suppose you want to label the new data point, then it is a classification problem, isn't it? Mm. So essentially here, when you say training, the training itself is based on the k, right? Unless you define as a hyperparameter your k value, your algorithm will not proceed. How many closest matches you want to consider, right? That is your K. Your learning happens through K. You don't have mathematical model to visualize in instance based learning, isn't it? You keep computing the distance of this data point with all the items in the data set, and probably then look at which are more closest ones to the given one, right? Is it clear? Just a minute. Yes. So, Saraswati madam, is it, am I able to answer your question? Now, let me go back to this slide. Because without understanding all this, talking about, music generation, etc., it will become very difficult, right? We will not be able to appreciate the subject. So that's why I'm discussing on all these aspects. All right. So this is how you group your experiments. Now, what is reinforcement learning? Any idea? What is reinforcement learning? Reward and action. Okay. Any other? Can you explain clearly what it is?
Um, I
Huh.
have I have unmuted.
Yeah, please.
Actually, basically, I'm teaching a child a model, or rather a machine. Um, what is an apple? Right. That is the task being given to the model or the machine. And again the next day, I showed him another fruit.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
In this way, I tried to teach the model one day an apple and another day an orange.
Huh.
And at the end of this seventh day, I asked him, like, um to predict, if I give a basket of fruits, to predict which one is apple and which one is an orange.
Huh.
Basically, when under the supervised classification model, if the training is proper with a large data set, it might give a good accuracy in predicting.
Uh-huh.
But in reinforcement learning, what happens basically, the action at times depends on the reward as well. Reward means maybe in the form of incentive.
Okay.
In machine learning framework, we can say this incentive could be like some coins or the points, or you will rather get some more memory or the time to process the information. If I'm not talking as according to the incentive what we get in a company or in an university or a college, not the appraisal one, but if we're talking about the technical framework, that there we could say we might increase the battery consumption or the memory. This way we can bribe the system. We can
Yeah,
bribe.
good. Very good. So, what you are coming out from is that you have an environment for which basically your system is learning, right? So, based on the quality of learning and actions, quality of actions that that application takes, you either reward or you give some kind of penalty. So, essentially, what happens is there are percepts which are actually learned from the environment, and you have an existing database, like the way you rightly you said, you always show them what is an apple, what is a banana, etc. So they have a knowledge base, but from the surroundings also, this particular agent infers certain things, and using these two, it will take an action. Yes, the result of an action can be either reward or penalty, and it will continuously improves on top of that, right? That's how uh, it is. Okay. So essentially, when you look at supervised learning and unsupervised learning, you deal with what we call probability distributions, right? What is the probability that it can be of, let us say, a positive class? Like, for example, you will say that P of x given theta. Theta is your model parameters. But in reinforcement learning, you define what we call policy. Policy is defined in terms of action and a reward, right? So you define a function p of action which takes given s. In other words, you define your system in reinforcement learning. Your system is making transitions from one state to another state, right, through an action A. Now, a state is representation of configuration. So let me take an example. Suppose you have a tic-tac-toe, you have an agent A. When, let us say, agent is starting the move, now you have something like this. Next time opponent will make a move. So opponent, let us say, opponent will place a circle here. Next time agent will make a move. Assume that this is how agent has made a move. Now next time your opponent will make a move. Assume that this fellow is not clever enough. Then he will keep a circle here. So next time what happens? Your agent will make a move of placing X, right? So this, now he will make a move here, and in the tic-tac-toe, either row wise or column wise, diagonal wise, if you get the same symbol, you are winning, you get reward 1, right? But in rest of the cases, the reward is 0. On the other hand, assume that at some point of time, you, instead of putting it here, suppose from here, you let's see like this. Instead of here, you put it here, then it will go to next series of steps. This, and already you have this, right? Now you put it here, and from here, right? Or let us say you are putting it here. Now assume that your agent is placing it here. Next, you place this here, you are winning. So opponent is winning, the reward is -1, whereas reward is +1. So you define a goal which you will not be able to perceive after how many finite steps you will receive. You will reach there using your human thinking, right? That is something is interesting about reinforcement learning. So gaming is one good example. And the agents that we are talking about, right? These agents which are learning from environment. What is environment for ChatGPT or Gemini, right? They are also learning from the environment. The environment is various web content, web pages, resources, right, which are openly available. They quickly extract the information from these available resources relevant to the query that you are asking, right? So this reinforcement learning is most happening area, at least now, compared to in the past, right? So that is reinforcement learning. Is it clear now? So essentially, these are association rule mining. There are multiple things we have, right? But considering the time constraint, we will not be able to uh, get examples for each of them, right? This thing I already explained, right? There are two types of models, generative model and a discriminative model. Discriminative models are predominantly used for classification prediction, and generative models we use to learn from existing content and create a statistical inference from that, right? So, of course, descriptive models, as I said earlier, they will be uh, usually trained on labeled data, whereas in the case of generative model, you aim to develop new instances or new examples, right? Next, large language model. What is large language model? These are general purpose models that can be pre-trained and fine-tuned for specific purpose, right? Which means the large language model is there. Suppose this is my large language model. You put some specific input in front of it, and it will customize the output what you get on the right hand side, like your you know transformer models or GPT models. They implicitly use large language models. What are the elements of large language models, right? These LLMs are trained on large data, right? Massive data set, and they internally use neural networks, and they try to learn some kind of statistical relationships, and they know how to fine tune themselves based on the tasks for which they are learning, right? So essentially, they are predominantly used for content which is of text type, text content generation, right? Now, what is a neural network? Don't think I am asking a fundamental question. What is a neural network? A neural network comprises of set of layers. So this is called one layer, and you have many such layers, right? And you have some output layer. This is our input that you are giving to these layers. There are nodes. Each node is connected to every node of the successor layer like this, right? This is how it is. Now, internal representation of node you take. Suppose you take some x1 here and x2 here. This node has two parts. One is summation part, another one is non-linear part. So essentially you put some weights here, w1, w2. The summation will become w1 x1 plus w2 x2. And if both of them are 0, then you don't want this function to vanish. So you put some bias called w0. So that is your sigma. Now the nonlinear function is you apply some nonlinear function of this summation z, right? So the essence of neural network is as you move deep and deep inside, you will get extract higher or more complex features. You will be learning more and more complex features. Now these W's are called parameters. Normally you must be seeing, right? Chart GPT or transformer based models that they have 200 billion parameters, 150 billion parameters. What are these parameters? The large language models internally they use some transformers or neural networks like this. Since the neural network is associated with set of weights, these number of weights that you are talking about is parameters, right? So understanding these parameters are very important. So in case of pre-trained models, these weights are already assigned and you just run a different input and the model try to learn from this and give you relevant output. Any question here so far? Now let me go to the slide. Now let us understand generative AI architecture. You are understanding, right? Am I able to communicate properly? Are you able to understand? Let me see if there are any chart. Number of hidden layers, it depends upon the complexity of the task, right? Suppose you want to recognize, let's say, human faces, right? Whether the person is wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. Essentially, you need to extract some specific features, right? Maybe you want to differentiate between, let us say, uh, different colored parrots, right? Green parrot and yellow parrot, for example, right? It is not just about color, but sometimes what happens, even there may be other bird with same yellow color, right? But you want to look at more complex features, like something like eyeball, right? And the size of the eyeball and position of the eyeball. These are the higher order features. If you want to develop a complex model where your data requires such kind of complex models, then you need to put more and more layers, because as you increase number of layers, you are learning more complexity, more complex features of your input data, right? So that's how you decide on number of layers. So these are called hyperparameters. Number of layers or number of nodes in each layer. These are called hyperparameters, which means these numbers are these numbers are independent of data, right? Because you are supplying them from outside. Okay, is it clear? Because okay, I have done spam filter including 10 features. How many hidden layers should I consider? Is there any rule? Uh, See, filter, spam filtering problem as such is not that complex, right? Even if you use support vector machines as a typical machine learning classifier, still you may get a decent performance, right? Not necessary. I have seen cases in my experience where even image data, right? Where a traditional machine learning model such as support vector machine, say support vector classifier, is outperforming your typical neural network model. So it depends upon the complexity associated with your data and the degree of non-linearity that is required are expected for that particular uh, data, right? That's what decides these number of layers, number of nodes, and all that. But you start with a base model, and probably you can try to improve it by adding more complexity in terms of layers, and also there is something called activation functions, right? So what kind of activation functions you are using, isn't it? Are you getting right? Very good. Now let me move on. Can I ask some questions? Hello? So suppose I have a data set, I am working on a classification problem, but I have very few data points. Let's say I have some 800 data points. Now which model you try first for a classifier? Which model you try? Suppose you are given seven models like naive Bayes, K nearest neighbors, and decision tree, support vector machine, like that, right? So you have a bunch of these classifier algorithms, but my data set size is small, like let's say 500 points, data points. Now, which model you try first to check the how the model performance is among all the models that you know? Hello? Is this question clear? No, no decision tree. No, no, Gen AI, we are not actually getting into Gen AI, right? We are talking about fundamentals that are needed. Which model you will try? See,
Sir, Mike,
you
sir,
try. Ah,
I just want to ask you, I have already put one question like output, is it class based or continuous data? Well, Mike, is it a
class based. I am
class
talking about
based?
class.
Class based,
Even
okay.
regression also. Even
Okay, class
regression
based
also.
or continuous based
Ah,
data?
ah,
Uh, you're trying to say the data set is small in size, right?
ah, ah,
So data set is small in size and only 500 points are there
ah. Which model you try first? That's my question.
for for a smaller data set.
Ah,
So basically, if we are considering a smaller data set and if it's a numeric data, continuous numeric data, we can go for decision tree regressor.
the problem with decision tree regressor is you always draw decision steps, right? If
Threshold
x less
steps, a
than
threshold. A
if,
threshold.
if x less than this threshold and all that. For
Hmm.
numeric data, fixing the threshold is again a overhead in computation, right? So the best model is support vector machine, because in support vector machines, what are support vectors? The data points which will differentiate the decision boundary, right? Decision boundary, on the left hand side you have positive class, right hand side negative class, right? To draw the decision boundary, you need only few data points. Since you have less number of data points, you start with the hope that some of these data points will constitute my decision boundary, and you also apply some feature transformation so that you can get some kind of linear decision boundary right? That's why SVM is very, very powerful model compared to remaining models. Is my explanation clear?
But sir, that will only work for the classification.
No, no.
Type
Even
of.
regression also you have
No,
decision.
SVR is there. SVR
Uh,
is there.
uh,
Support vector regressor is there.
I will show you what I'm explaining. Uh, Give me a minute. Here, for example, if you have like these are all my positive data points, right? These are my negative data points. So what it means is for support vector machine, you need to draw a decision boundary. To draw a decision boundary, you need at least two data points on one side, at least one data point on other side. No matter, you may have 10,000 data points here or 5,000 data points. It doesn't matter. I just need data points through which I can draw the decision boundary. And you find the width of the decision boundary and you want to maximize this width. That is called your support vector regressor or support vector classifier. That's why when you have less data points, you always prefer to use this with the hope that some of them will help you to draw the decision boundary. Because once I know how to draw decision boundary, it doesn't matter whether I have 10,000 points or 1 lakh points. It is irrelevant, right? What matters is here, isn't it? So anyway, let me continue this. So now we are when you get into this generative AI architecture, essentially what we have is you
Sir, just one question. This is okay for the linear boundary if you have two
no, no,
classes.
no. Even non-linear also you apply some kernel tricks, right? There are some kernels.
RTF, radial
Yeah, yeah,
basis
yeah, yeah.
kernel.
So when
But
you use those kernels, it will
if number of,
transform your non-linear space to linear space.
yeah, that is all right. But if the number of classes become more, like if it is,
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Suppose you teach sorting techniques to students, right? What is sorting? Sorting is only based on a comparator. At any point of time, you compare two values, A with B. Now you run a loop, x1 with x2, x1 with x3. At any point of time, you do only two comparisons, right? So similarly, you have multi-class classification. First, you say A, B, C are the classes. You compare, you say you classify whether A or other. Within other, again you classify whether it is B or C. So iteratively, you are decomposing the problem of multi-class classifier into a binary class classification problem, but in a loop. Are you getting what I'm saying?
yes, yes.
Ah, because there is nothing like a multi-class classification algorithm which is coming from heaven. Any multi-class classification implicitly a binary classifier. Only thing is that you run a loop. Suppose five classes are there. First you say class A or not. If it is not class A, then you like take that sub problem saying that if it is not class A, then I am looking at B, C, D. Among B, C, D, is it B or not? Again, a binary classification problem. Like that, you repetitively you run this classifier, isn't it?
Sir, just I want to clarify my own this thing. But if I go, if it's a small data set and if you have number of classes is around 3 or 4,
Oh,
so why can't we approach with the ensemble method or the random forest method? Because there we can have small tree, and there we can do this comparison. And out of if there are three
no, no,
classes,
I am not having any contention here. I am not having I am not contending here that you should not do that, you should only do this. I am talking about best practice. What are the
okay,
best practices that we follow? That's what I am talking about. If you
okay,
ask me that why can't you try this? Answer is yes, I can try, but I cannot say that that is the best approach.
okay.
See, for example, when you are walking on the road, right? Normally, what is the good practice? Which is always on the left hand side, isn't it? But it doesn't mean that people only walk on the left hand side, isn't it?
Hmm.
So, but based on our experience, people say that okay, if you walk on the other side, you there is high chance of getting accident and all that. Through that experience, we say that okay, this is the better thing. So
Hmm.
these are the some of the guidelines that we infer from past experience. So because when anything that you want to start, right, in this space, you start with the simplest one. You may fail, that's okay. Then you know how to improve it. So you realize that okay, SVM is not working. What is the best model I can choose, etc., etc. So this knowledge is very important even your generative AI stuff as well, right? So in generative AI, what you do, you just take a random input and then you give it to generative model. Generative model will create a new data point, new example. Now you want to compare that new example with actual example to check the quality of the data that is generated. That's why you are using a discriminative model. It will classify whether it is a real data or fake data, in the sense that our intention is this new data point that is generated, it has to be as much close as possible to real data point, so that your model is able to create content in a more realistic way. Okay, so that's why you can never forget a discriminative or classifier when you talk about generative AI. Now, if you look at some of the architectures, I will skip this slide considering our time. Now we understood what is generative AI and how it is evolved, and what it is from data generators, because you have a lot of functions, right? We have discriminative functions and the generative functions. The essence of generative AI stems from two important things. One is data generative functions, other one is reinforcement learning concept. So combination of these two is actually enabling us to develop more and more GenAI applications, right? Now let us get into Gemini. So Gemini, again, it is a kind of a tool, right, based on natural language processing and machine learning. And when they started this, right, they just started as a supplement to Google search. But later on, in early this 2000, etc., they improved it further uh, with the support of the frameworks like DeepMind, right? Community, where you develop advanced AI search functionality, right? And that's where you developed large language models, right? So, but before that, the concept of Gemini is to support multimodal AI. Multimodal AI, already told you, right? It is a text, a video, and all that. Mm. How Gemini is powerful than ChatGPT? ChatGPT not necessarily support this multimodal prompts, but Gemini is designed for that purpose. Now, these are the generative transformed models. GPT means what? Generative pre-trained transform model. Chat GPT means generative pre-trained transform model. Now we are comparing GPT models with Gemini with respect to various features. So predominantly you can see that Gemini, it is designed as a multimodal by default, unlike your GPTs. GPTs are more text based. Here you can use text, image, audio, video, everything, right? So these are the some of the strong points about Gemini. Now these are the parameters, complexity of the model. Model complexity, if you see, it has 200 billion parameters, right? As of now, compared to OpenAI ChatGPT, which is 175 billion parameters. Let me tell me one thing. Suppose I have two models. One model is having 1000 parameters. Other model is having 500 parameters. Which model is more complex? Hello? Which model is more complex? The one with 1000 parameters or the one with 500 parameters? The parameters I already told you, right? These are the W's in your network. Hello? Let me check the chart. Yeah, 1000. So this also gives you an idea of how to choose your model, right? How to choose the level of complexity for a given task. Now here, Gemini, if you see, it is for multimodal. It is a combination of text, code, audio, and image, whereas OpenAI ChatGPT is predominantly for text-based. The performance, it outperforms in some cases human responses like math and coding, and whereas OpenAI ChatGPT is good for uh, dialogue systems and storytelling kind of thing, right? So on the other hand, your Gemini models are cost effective compared to your GPT models. Now I have questions for you. Can you see my screen? Hello? Now, what is the option here? Because in the exam, we have assessment, right? At the end of this FDP, you may get similar type of questions. I just want to give some exposure to you about those questions, right? No, no, it does not take support. Okay. Now let us look at this one. Out of these variants of Gemini AI, which variant has lightweight model for mobile devices? Which option you select? Nano, correct. So these are the type of questions we expect in the exam, right? Now Gemini can be used for creative writing and scientific research. However, it cannot be used in education due to its lack of imparting personalized learning experience. Is this statement true or false? And why? False. Why it is false? Because you can use generative AI, right? Because in my next session, I think in couple of days, uh, as part of this program is more on how can we use this generative AI even in education effectively. Okay. Okay. Now let us look at here. In what aspects Gemini outperforms your GPT? Which options are correct? Let me check. You can enumerate them where 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You can say 1, 2, or 2, 3, or 1, 4, or whatever. Because it is a checkbox thing, right? More than one option is correct. Hello? I'm saying more than one option is correct. Which one? Which options? Let me see here. We know that Gemini supports multimodal format, right? So definitely first option is correct. Gemini will not outperform primarily text-based performance. It is good for reasoning, math, code generation, etc. That I already explained in one of the slides earlier, right? Now, similarly, it is not good for storytelling. It is about cost effectiveness. So option 1 and 4 are correct. Okay. Hello. So you have to be very careful in identifying the distractors. It might appear that all the four are correct or 1 to 4 are correct, but it is only 1 and 4 correct options. Are you getting? Next. Now let us understand music part of it. So music as a data, we need to understand the representation, right? It has three types of representations. One is sheet music, that means a PDF document, etc., where you define all the notes. Then instrumental and audio. Right? Now, what are the challenges in this musical data? One is representation. Then we don't have annotated data sets for pre-training of the models. Then another important thing is noise associated with the music, that is expressivity and vocal complexity. Vocal complexity means how these gamakas, etc., you represent or you pronounce, right, reproduce. And then sequential structure of music structure and contextual blending, right? And how do you define the evaluation metric? Like, how can you say that quality of music generated by this generative model is better than other? So these are some of the challenges. So leveraging generative AI in music is very much is advantageous because it will enhance overall creativity and rich user experience, and you will be unifying this music, generated music, with something like somebody is, let's say somebody is playing flute, right? You want to take some drums and you want to do some infusion, right? So then the drums music you can use generative model and try to combine, mix them, right? So now let us look at the data representation. These are the various forms of data representation for the music: dot wave, MP3, AFF, sheet music. It can be simple notation or XML or PDF, etc. Then instrumental. These are the representations. So the three classes of representations that we have for this as part of data format. Sometimes you may leverage Python libraries to generate this music, right? Like Suno or some other frameworks. They use spectrograms, right? So, and other formats are HDF5 and CSV files and all that. Now, suppose the representation of data, if you see here, there are two things. One is time versus frequency, other one is amplitude. So it turns out that time versus frequency is better. For example, you hear this sound, right? Are you able to hear this? Hello? Are you able to hear this? Now let me share the screen. So can you figure out? It is very famous BG background music. Like for example, if you see Bahubali's movie, right? You see this kind of background. So how do you represent? It is these are the text representation that we are talking about, right? And the talas that you say, essentially these are represented with special notation and symbols. Now, not only that, so of course, these are the some of the intricacies of pre-processing. When you look at vocal or instrumental, the pre-processing involves denoising and segmentation, resampling. These are the predominant things. And when it comes to sheet music, standardization and quantization, these are the some of the techniques. And when it comes to framing or windowing, essentially framing means you take a lens, you keep moving on this data, that window will capture. So it is like this. You have a water stream, right? In water stream, you want to measure some nutrient values in a stream of water. You can't measure nutrient values of entire river, right? So what you do, you take a bucket, take some bucket full of water and try to see. That is a kind of samples collection. Right? That is what window here, right? So your music stream is going on. You collect the samples as data and try to analyze it. Now, so these are the some of the components. One is Tala, pitch, and combinatorics. Now let us see how the mathematical representation or feature extraction happens in generative music. You listen to this. So what do you understand from this, right? So this particular raga and the combination, right? If you see, you can synthesize a Fibonacci sequence. So you can construct a mathematical representation of it, isn't it? So that is very interesting. Similarly, suppose if you see this, give me a minute.
Human collaboration with intelligent machines. A different musician in a different town with a different approach.
You are able to
is
hear
giving
and
the
see,
same
right?
problem a shot.
People are concerned about AI replacing humans, and I think it's not only not going to replace humans, it's going to enhance humans.
You can see this here.
I'm Gil Weinberg. I'm the founding director of Georgia Tech's Center for Music Technology. Ready? In my lab, we are trying to create the new technologies that will explore new ways to be expressive, to be creative.
So basically, it is a robot. It can listen, human playing, produce.
What it does, it's listen to humans playing, and it can improvise. Shimon is our first robotic musician that has the ability
This
to
is a
find
textual
patterns.
this is
So
a
machine learning.
sheet music, right?
Machine learning is the ability to find patterns in data. So for example, if we feed Shimon, Miles Davis, it will try to see what note is he likely to play after what note. And once it finds its patterns, it can start to manipulate it, and I can have the robot playing in a style that maybe is 30% Miles Davis, 30% Bach, 30% Madonna, and 10% my own, and create morphing of music that humans would never create.
Gil's groundbreaking work in artificial creativity and musical expression has been performed by symphonies around the world. But his innovation also caught the attention of another musician.
Okay.
A guy who unexpectedly
charts,
pushed
let
Gil
me see
beyond
here.
enhancing
Okay, nothing much actually.
robots to augmenting humans.
I met Jason Barnes about 6 years ago, and I was just about finishing one phase of developing Shimon. And I was starting to think, what's next?
I got my
Now
first
this
drum
is
kit when I
what
was 15
you
on
know,
Christmas. And when I lost my
combining
grandmother, I was
music
22,
with
so I was
different
kind of used to having two
instruments,
limbs.
right?
I started trying to fabricate prosthetics to try and get me back on the kit, which eventually led me to working and collaborating with Georgia Tech.
He told me that he lost his arm. He was devastated. He was depressed. Music was his life. And he said, I saw that you develop robotic musicians. Can you use some of the technology that you have in order to allow me to play again like I used to? So that's the prosthetic arms that we built for Jason. When he came to us, he just wanted to be able to use sensors here so he can hold the stick tight or loose. I suggested let's do that, but also let's have two sticks. One stick can operate with a mind of its own, understanding the music and improvising. One stick can operate based on what you tell it with your muscle. And also each one of the sticks can play 20 hertz, faster than any humans. And together they can create polyrhythm, create all kind of
All
textures
right.
that humans cannot create. All right, I think we're ready to play.
So these are it works,
Human
right?
collaboration.
So like that, there are many such use cases you can think of. One is one important use case about you know creating voice or noise of different species like dolphins, etc. Right? They are very helpful in you know c- creating some kind of relief like autism and all that. So you can't just bring in dolphin and listen to it, right? So you need to see, you have a recorded voice of it and generate some further improvisation on that, right? These are some of the applications of it. Now, in traditional thing, right? People like Shankar Mahadevan, A.R. Rahman, all these people are leveraging this generative music, right? These are some of the references I have. So this is what I have. Thank you.
Yes, we are almost on the dot, almost
Yeah.
on time. And let me thank you, Dr. Prakash Gotedi, for this once again, a wonderful session. And we saw a
Thanks,
lot of
madam.
participation from the faculty members also. So thank you to all the faculty members for engaging and from joining the session to learn about generative AI. And we will call it a day today. And
Thank you. Yeah, sure.
see you again tomorrow at 6 o'clock. All the faculty members, please join in. We'll be your at 80% attendance is compulsory for getting your ATAL certificate. And tomorrow I will tell you about the course and on Future Skills Prime and the assessment also. So that I will tell you tomorrow. So please join in. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr. Prakash
madam, for
Paredi.
the
Thank you.
opportunity. Thank
Thank
you
you for
so
your
much.
time.
Bye.